Yeah.
City of Northglenn, Channel 8, keeping you informed of events in your community.
Call the study session meeting of November the 18th, 2019 to order. Joanne, would you call the roll, please?
Mayor Escobar,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Leidy. Here. Councilmember Sowers is running late. Councilmember Rodriguez will be absent. Councilmember Downing will be absent. Councilmember Brown.
Here.
Councilmember Whitman will be absent. Councilmember Duran-Mullica.
Here.
Councilmember Wilford.
Here.
Okay, the first item on the agenda is the Excel Partners and Energy Action Plan and Phase 2 Memorandum of Understanding. City Manager Guy, would you introduce the item, please?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Escobar. I'm going to turn it over to Becky Smith, our planning manager, to introduce this item. We're bringing it back to City Council. We had some of a discussion about the Excel Partners and Energy Draft Action Plan previously, and we've made additional progress on it. So I'm looking for council direction tonight, specifically to bring forward a resolution to formally adopt the Draft Energy Action Plan and Phase 2 MOU with Excel Energy at the November 25th meeting.
Thank you, Mayor Escobar, council members. Becky Smith with the Planning Division here tonight to present the Excel Energy Action Plan and MOU for Phase 2 implementation. But before we get into that, I'd also like to point out that Sarah Dusenberry, our new senior planner, is in the back of the room with us, and you guys will be seeing her more so that you guys can put a face with a name. So we're really happy to have her on board. I also have Susan Bartlett here tonight with Brindle Group. That's the consulting group that was hired by Excel Energy to help facilitate the energy action planning process, as well as help oversee the implementation as we move into Phase 2 if we move forward with that. So I know she has a presentation to go over what the process was and what some of our findings were. So I'll probably just pass it over to her, and I'll get the presentation started.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to let me share a little bit about this process and the plan that we came to with Becky and her team. Again, I'm Susan Bartlett. I'm here on behalf of Excel Energy, and we help Excel Energy implement the Partners in Energy program. The side?
Oh, it might not be on.
Oh.
Is it on the side there?
Oh, right there. Got it. So I just wanted to let you all know that before we got started, we worked with Becky, and we had the backdrop of your 2018 sustainability plan kind of as the framework that we started with. And we built on the goals and strategies that you all had already identified as being important. Some of those were energy efficiency, renewable energy, and then being able to take advantage of some of Excel Energy's incentive programs. And just to give you a little bit of background about what Partners in Energy is, it is provided by Excel Energy. It's kind of a 2-year engagement that we have with communities. It starts with about 6 months of planning, where we help communities build their energy plan. It's a customized plan for each community based on their baseline information and the ideas and focus areas that they identify. And then we also stay engaged for about 18 months thereafter to help implement the strategies that are in the plan. So we want to make sure that you have enough resources to kind of get things off the ground and make good progress moving forward. And also a little background, we're now up to about 50 communities among 3 states. So we work in Colorado, Minnesota, and Wisconsin. And we have about 24 communities in Colorado that are part of this peer Partners in Energy Community Network, and Northglenn is among those. So a lot of times a question that we get is, why is Excel Energy doing something like this? They're in the energy business, not in the planning business. And there are a number of reasons. First of all, the energy industry is changing, and what customers need related to energy is changing. And Excel wants to be part of that conversation with the communities that they serve. And this offering allows Excel to understand what you need. It also allows them to better align the services that they offer with what you all are interested in as a community. And they're very interested in staying engaged with their communities. This may be a little hard for you to read, but I think you all have copies of it. There are a number of benefits to Northglenn participating in this offering. There's facilitated planning that's provided by Xcel Energy, so we come and we work with your city staff to build out a plan. Also, we provide some baseline energy data, both electricity and natural gas data, to help you have a framework for where you're starting from, and that allows us to help you measure your progress over time, because we continue to collect that data for you and share it with you and let you know how you're doing. We, through the implementation process, that 18 months of implementation, we're a collaborative partner to help you get things done that have been identified in the plan. So a little bit about the process. And I won't go into too much detail here, except to say that Becky and her team identified a group of stakeholders, the planning team that we were able to work with. We had 4 3-hour workshops that we worked with this planning team, and during that time, I'll just mention some of the folks that were involved. We had city staff. We also had United Power, which is another one of your utility providers. We had some of the area institutions like your school district, Adams 12, the county health department. We had chamber representation for a little while. We also had some local business representation, and some residents also participate. So we want to be sure during the planning process that we're including folks that will be impacted and that will actually need to help us with implementation. So we had those folks at the table. We had these workshops, and during that time, we're able to work with your staff to develop a vision for the plan, go over the baseline, identify some focus areas, set some goals, and then most importantly, at least in my mind, build out ways to help you achieve those goals. And that's in the plan that you have in your packet. So this plan, at least in my mind, is more of a work plan than a formal planning document, although it has its formality, but it also has the details for what you want to do to achieve the goals that you've set, and it's customized for Northglenn's vision and goals, and to me, it's a guide for getting through that implementation process. Just wanted to share with you a vision. This is sort of the North Star of the plan. The Northglenn community will conserve its resources and promote sustainability through energy awareness, renewable sources, and collaboration to provide an exceptional quality of life and resilient future for residents and businesses. So this is what the city wants to shoot for. Wanted to share with you, if you haven't had a chance to read the plan, just what the focus areas were that were identified by the planning team, that stakeholder group. It's broken out into fairly common focus areas, but they're important: residences, and then commercial and small businesses, municipal facilities, excuse me, and then also some a cross-cutting theme of renewable energy that we hope to apply in each one of these areas. And there are specific targets that are associated with each one of these focus areas. And if we're able to achieve those targets during implementation, that helps you move forward towards some of your longer-term goals that you already have in your sustainability plan.
Ask a question.
Sure.
So for the municipal target of the 5% reduction in the next 3 years, is that part of the sustainability plan, or where did that target come from?
It's not a specific target that's set out in your sustainability plan.
Okay.
It's something that we kind of broke into groups, and we had a group that focused on municipal targets and strategies, and that was something that our municipal group talked about that they wanted to achieve.
Okay.
Yeah, and I would just add that the goals within the Energy Action Plan are really short-term goals. So those will be, we're trying to achieve those in the next 2 to 3 years, whereas the sustainability plan, some of those goals are longer term. They might go into 2030 or 2035. So.
All right, and just a quick question. So, what made you choose like 5% over like 3%? Or, I mean, why 5%? Is that an arbitrary number, or how did you guys come up?
It's not, it's a good question. It's not an arbitrary number. So that's why having your baseline data is so important. And Becky and the city were able to give us some information that allowed us to separate out municipal use from the rest of community use. And so we looked at that baseline, and then also looked at best practices across the state and nationally for what other communities are doing in their own municipal facilities, and, you know, kind of basing it on best practices and what your city staff felt like they could accomplish. That's where we landed on the 5%.
Thank you.
Any other questions about the focus areas? The targets are a little bit small, but for residential, we're hoping to be able to connect with half of your premises, and premises is a utility term for customer. It's not exactly a one-to-one relationship, but we tend to think of it in terms of customers. So we want to be able to connect with half of your residential customers, and then hope to double participation in some of the programs with Xcel Energy over the time that we're engaged. And we want to shoot for an energy savings of 1% annually for the next 3 years. So that's 1% each year for the next 3 years in the residential market. And again, we have that baseline data, and then we'll be able to provide annual data thereafter and kind of measure and see how well you're doing against that target. For commercial and small businesses, again, we're looking to connect with about 400 businesses, and we want at least 115 of those, after they've had some education and awareness, to go ahead and do something that's going to improve their efficiency and participate in programs. And we'd like to see a community-wide commercial energy savings of 2% annually for the next 3 years.
And is that going to be achieved through some type of outreach or special program that the city's going to be doing with our small businesses?
Yes. Yes. And we can talk about a few of those in just a few minutes.
Thank you.
Then we've talked about the municipal goal. And then this cross-cutting theme of renewable energy, we'd like to add 250 kW of renewable energy in Northglenn by 2025. It's broad. It could be residential, it could be commercial, it could be municipal, it could be a variety of different applications to get to that total.
Question for you. You may or may not know the answer to this. Approximately 250, is it
KW?
kilowatts? How much, like, how many homes would that power?
That's a really good question that I'll have to give an answer back to you.
Okay.
A typical residential solar array generates between 8 and 10 kW, so I guess we could do the backwards math. So, yeah. And some commercial rooftop installations could be as much as 500 kW. For example, there's a Target that just installed solar in Summit County that's about 500 kW. So there's a variety of ways to get to that number. If it's residential, it takes more participation. If it's commercial, you can do bigger projects and get there a little quicker. So in terms of how to achieve some of these targets, you're right on with outreach. For that residential focus area, we're looking at a communications campaign that lets residential customers understand a little bit better how they use energy, what the opportunities are to save energy, if there are incentive programs to help them buy down the cost of energy efficiency improvements. Also, the city is interested in developing a buy-down program for something called Home Energy Squad, which is an offering from Xcel Energy where a technician comes to the home, does some direct installation of light bulbs and aerators and weatherization and maybe a programmable thermostat. Normally, that's between $50 and $150 for the visit, but all the equipment is then installed without an additional cost. And the city is looking at identifying some funds to be able to buy down that cost, either whole or in part, so that more people have access to that kind of program. And for a lot of utility companies, programs like that are sort of gateway programs that once you get a homeowner on board with something like that, you can generally get them to be more aware or to participate in some of the other programs that are available. So you get a little traction that way. With commercial and small businesses, again, we're looking at increasing awareness. A lot of times what we find about the resources that are available is that most people don't know they're available. So they might need to buy a new piece of equipment, but they don't realize there might be an incentive related to buying a new piece of equipment that they could take advantage of and what the benefits of that would be. So part of it is just making sure we're getting information out there to the right people so that they can make the best decision at the time that they're upgrading their equipment. And in particular, we'd like to talk with property managers that own commercial real estate. You have your tenant and you have your building owner, and we definitely want energy efficiency to be a positive benefit for both of those audiences, and being able to explain the benefits of energy efficiency to a building owner, as well as what a tenant can do with their own operations to reduce energy use, is a win-win for both. The city is also considering looking at an incentive program to help commercial customers buy down, kind of like the residential on that Home Energy Squad program buy down. The city wants to investigate what it might look like to build a program to incentivize commercial customers to do projects for energy efficiency over time. Then on the municipal facility side, again, you're probably noticing a theme. Education and awareness is huge. If you don't know, you can't make a good change. And being able to educate employees about how city facilities operate and what they can do to help improve energy efficiency in those buildings is really important. That also motivates them to do better at home sometimes. So what you learn at work, you take home. And so we get a win-win there as well. We're also looking at building energy teams and to have some energy champions in each of your facilities to spur some interest, to raise awareness, and kind of create a challenge among facilities to do the best that you can in your building. And then just on the capital improvement side, the city already does a really good job of trying to stay ahead with capital improvements and buying high-efficiency equipment. So this is a kind of continuation on that theme, and just making sure you're taking advantage of all the resources that are available, either to help you design for high efficiency or to get incentives when you buy new equipment, keeping that in mind with new construction, so you're making the right choices first instead of having to come back and follow around with that. And then another thing that the city's interested in doing is benchmarking. And that's an opportunity that's free through Energy Star if you use Portfolio Manager, and you can build a campus account using Portfolio Manager, and Xcel Energy can upload the data for those buildings automatically into these accounts, and it will allow your facilities management staff to be able to look at the energy use across the campus of buildings that you have for the city and identify which ones might be problematic, where you could make some improvements, which ones are doing well, where you see opportunity. You can also have buildings that qualify for Energy Star certification, which is something that you can let the public know about and show that you're leading by example. We're not going to do all of the buildings to begin with, but we're going to identify some key buildings that make the most sense. Get your accounts set up, get started so you can start looking at that more closely. And then finally, that cross-cutting theme, the strategy there is in progress. The city is considering looking at partnering with other Front Range metro areas on a solar co-op. And that's in process, and we'll kind of have to see how that rolls out. But that would be one way to encourage folks to participate if there was a solar garden available that they could participate in. I know that's a lot. Any questions on this part?
Good.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick question overall. I think when it comes to the communication to the residences, it's in both English and in Spanish, or you're making sure to target the Latino community as well, and making sure that who's approaching the Latino community is very familiar and able to provide them with information of the incentives. I know just in sometimes Latino households, it's really hard to think through incentives or what exactly that even means. But just being mindful of going out in those communities too, and having those, a lot of the information in both English and Spanish is important.
You make a really good point, and it's something that we're working through with a lot of
Yeah.
our communities along the Front Range. Not only just making sure that we're providing information that's in a language that people understand, but sort of communicating in a way
Yeah.
that is meaningful. So maybe energy efficiency isn't as important to me as safety. So how do you communicate with me about the things that I have the most concern about, and how are they linked to some of the things that we're trying to engage and encourage about? So we'll be working really closely with your communication staff on
Yeah.
making sure we have the right message. And then hopefully being able to use city channels or existing community channels to get the information to the right places and to those influencers that are in your community that can actually kind of perpetuate that information. It's hard work.
Oh, no,
I will be the
totally.
first one to admit it's hard work, but your point is a really good point, and we have to keep it top of mind.
Yeah, and the delivery is very important, and who's delivering the message as well, I think. Yeah, it's in Spanish, that's great, at least you can understand it, but I think it's another element of the delivery and where you're going to deliver this message as well. So I really appreciate your efforts in trying to target those key individuals in the community to continue to disseminate the information throughout. I think it's very,
Well, and I think that's where we're going to need help.
Yeah.
What are the trusted channels in your community? Because you can take a message, but it may not have any credibility depending on who's bringing the message. So we
Yeah.
want to be able to connect with those trusted and credible resources in your community with the right type of information.
totally, I appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you. Other questions on the strategies? This slide is mostly just to reassure you that now that you have your plan, and if you adopt the plan, Xcel Energy and Brendel Group, we're going to hang with you for the next 18 months, and we're going to work really hard to help you get these things done. And we can do that in a variety of ways, and some of that is documented in the memorandum of understanding that's in your packet. But part of what we bring is project management. Your city staff already have a lot going on, and to manage new things in addition to what they're already doing can be challenging. So we can continue to coordinate with them, work with strategy teams to keep things moving. We also have tools and templates that are available to make the process a little smoother. We're communicating about this kind of a thing on a regular basis with a variety of other communities. And so we're able to provide content when you need it, hopefully in the way that we need to be delivering it, using your channels to get the information out to the right folks. But we're going to help you. You're not going to have to build new stuff. We're going to help you. That doesn't mean that that it has to be what we develop. We're going to work really closely with your communication staff to make sure that we're communicating the right thing, but we don't have to start over. We can use a lot of information that's available. Xcel Energy has a lot of resources already available, and we want to be able to leverage that. I mentioned the data before. It's really important to be able to know if you're making progress. And that's important both if you're doing really well and also if you're struggling a little bit, because it helps you understand kind of, well, this is working, but maybe this not so much, and so we need to adjust. And I would just say there's nothing wrong with getting partway through a year and saying, this really isn't catching. We need to adjust and do something a little bit differently if we want to hit our goals or if we want to make progress. And so by being able to provide you with some data that shows you kind of how you're doing with programs and how you're doing with energy consumption, we hope that that's helpful to you. So we have that quantitative data that's available, but we're also keeping track of all the stuff that you're doing. How many events do you host? How many people did you talk to at a festival? Did you send out email blasts to a certain number? We're kind of tracking that, and we have analytics that go with that to help you know, oh, that's working or it's not working, and we need to, level set. Or it's working great, how can we do more of this? And can we apply this across the board to other things? So it's a very flexible way to give you, hopefully, the information you need to know if you're doing well or not. And then finally, there's that education and outreach piece. One of the benefits of being a Partners in Energy community is you have access to other communities in this peer group, and also we provide monthly office hours where we bring in expertise about different topics that are interesting, or intriguing to communities to get more information out there, and then you can share with one another what's worked or what hasn't worked. So that subject matter expertise helps us in implementation kind of do a better job or focus in. We also can provide support for events and that kind of thing, just kind of coordination, making sure you have the right stuff for the right place to talk to the right people. So you don't have to just do it all by yourself. We know that you're going to lead it because it's important to you, but we want to be support to make sure you can be successful there. And, the memorandum of understanding that's in your packet, it's a non-binding agreement between you and Excel. It's a lot like the one that you all approved for the planning process, and it simply says, we agree to continue working together. I'm oversimplifying. We agree that these are the things that you identified in your plan. Here's how we're going to help you. Here's what we think that you should be committed to as a city. And we're all going to work together and do the best that we can to make sure you hit your targets. And really, after this 18 months, what we hope is that there's a little more capacity within the community to continue. We don't want it to end after 18 months. We want you to feel really successful and like you've had an opportunity to maybe break into some new areas that you haven't been able to break into before or see some real success, and we want that to continue. So the next steps, hopefully, is that you would approve the MOU and the plan next week. And then if that's the case, we would go ahead and start transitioning from planning into implementation. And what that means is just kind of getting those strategy teams up and rolling and setting a course for 2020, and organizing ourselves around what needs to be done and timelines and things like that. And also having more of a public launch so that we're not just doing this under a rock, that we can get some public support, because quite frankly, even the city and Excel working together, we can't do it all. We need organizations outside of the city to be participating, and we need your residents to be on board. And so we hope to generate a little bit of enthusiasm in that way. Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you very much for the time. I really appreciate it tonight.
Actually, we'll keep it on.
So I guess the next step is to provide information as to whether we have consensus to move forward and bring this on the 25th discussion.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this is great. I guess the question I would have for you, Heather, would be, there's not any type of budget impact now. Do we anticipate any budget impact for 2020? Or is really the majority of the implementation going to be in the 2020?
I believe it'll be 2021. Becky, has that changed at all from our 2020 budget discussions? No? Okay. Yeah, and certainly if something changes where there's an opportunity to do something different sooner, we'll bring that to council and let you know.
Great. I support it. I think it's great.
Okay. Meredith? Jordan?
Thank
Good.
you.
All right, the next item on the agenda is the special events and festivals, level of service. Paula Jansen, City Manager Gar, would you introduce the item, please?
Thank you, Mayor Escabel. Paula Jensen, Stephen Stokes, and Ashley are here tonight to provide you with a presentation on special events and festivals in the city of Northglenn. This level of service presentation came about from questions previously from council members about sponsorship levels, budgetary questions, and so I felt like it was a good opportunity to go ahead and do an overall level of service presentation. This is what we're providing in terms of level of service. Also, staff is going to touch on what is on our minds and what they're working on in terms of planning into 2020 because our main area, parking area is under construction that we utilize for many of these events. There's decisions that we have to make leading into next year's season of special events and festivals. So with that, I'll turn it over to Paula.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Paula Jensen, Director of Management Services. I am going to quickly turn it over to Stephen Stokes, Event Supervisor, and Ashley Garst, Events Coordinator.
Thank you. It's good to be here this evening. Just want to grab my notes. So as Paula mentioned, Stephen Stokes, Event Supervisor, and Ashley Garst, Event Planner. So this is an update, as the City Manager said, about festivals and events in Northglenn. We wanted to start with going back a little bit. You know, when we started back in 2015, that was when I arrived on as staff of the city. And then Ashley started in July of that same year. We were just doing 3 events at that time within our department or area, Kids Fishing Derby, July 4th, and Noel Northglenn. And council had a goal of creating 3 new festivals in 3 years, and that's the process that we've gone through. We first started with Pirate Festival 5 years ago, and now, as you know, we have nearly 20,000 people that attend between Pirate Ball on Friday evening and Pirate Fest on Saturday, nearly all in costume. 90 booths at this year's Pirate Fest was most we've had, and we continue to grow. We also had 4 stages, including the Mermaid Pool and the Cardboard Regatta. Established in 2016, so that was a year after Pirate Fest. It's fun to look back on these information. We have Food Truck Carnival. This year we had 86 trucks. That was about 30 each day, with a few less on Mother's Day on the Sunday, with bands, also design trucks, walk-around performers, with a 15,000 a daily attendance, or about 45 to 50,000 people over the course of the 3 days. And this year we were able to add breweries. Local breweries had interest in coming and being a part. We'd had 1 brewery in the past, and this year we had 7 breweries and a distillery. And then Magic Festival is our 3rd event to create. It's more of a performance-based festival for those who have attended. 30 magicians outside on 4 stages. And then inside, we always get a national act, somebody that we can promote at a higher level that's very difficult to see in Colorado. And we brought them in the first year from America's Got Talent, the last 2 years from Las Vegas. In addition to that, we've gone through each event to basically create a facelift. And when we first started back, it was Kids Fishing Derby. And now it's Derby Day, and we do that in combination with Heel for the bike rodeo. So it's both fishing and biking. We also helped with the police department to make a logo and a marketing plan for Safe Street Halloween. We've also improved Noel Northglenn. This year, for the first time, we'll have live reindeer at the event. Rudolph is our theme, so it'll be fun to have some live reindeer in addition. And then I also wanted to just note that we also created a dynamic new sponsorship program when Ashley came on board.
Okay, so sponsorship. Before I started in 2015, there was sponsorship definitely happening at the city, but it was really fragmented from department to department. And as I kind of started doing research as to what we could do and what had been done, there was some kind of negativity around that. I heard from other departments that people didn't want to beg for bucks. And so we've worked really hard to kind of change that mindset. Sponsorship's not begging for bucks. We're selling something of value, and there's a really high demand for it, particularly in our market. So the sponsorship program that we've created creates economic opportunity not only for local businesses, but for regional businesses. And it gives those businesses an opportunity to reach audiences where they already are. So in order to create our programming, we went through and aggregated all the benefits that we could offer. So that's things like placement on our websites, placement in the Northglenn Connection, live opportunities at events. And we assigned value to all of those based on audience size and different margins like that. And then we created a packet that organizes all of the programs based on audience size and duration of event. So we have small community events, large community events, festivals, series programming, and then theater programming. The program has grown hugely since I've been here. 2016 was our first year with the overall program, and that year we sold just over $20,000 in sponsorship. This year we had $42,460 in sponsorship, and that was coming from 24 businesses. So that's a lot of business reaching out in our community. And through the program, we've also had opportunity to work with national labels like Diet Coke and Crocs and businesses like that. So
They're really looking towards, they look for bigger events to come and do national tours, and so that's how we've been able to attract them.
Do we do individual events, or do we do it as a pitch? How do we do that?
So the packet is built with packages where people can say, I want to do all of the festivals, and it's built for them to do that in one easy step. But we've laid it out as a menu, so they can see things from the rec center up to the festivals. And when businesses get involved, they largely come to me and they either say, I already know what I want to do, I have a certain budget, or I have a certain goal. And then I work to develop a relationship with them and kind of target what will work for them specifically, and they can definitely do individual events.
Quick question. Do we have like a process where, like, say you're like a nonprofit or something like that, like, do we offer some type of discounting when it comes to sponsorships, or like allow them to like play in their own way?
So there are a whole lot of opportunities for either businesses or nonprofits to get involved. So most of our nonprofits aren't always necessarily looking for the same thing a sponsor might be. And so based on what their needs are, we can plug them in different ways, whether that's just having a vendor booth, whether that's doing a small interaction, like research. We have some groups that come out to do research specifically for Northglenn or involved with planning. Like for the bike development program, we do that. Some nonprofits get involved with like our beer and alcohol sales. So the Northglenn Community Foundation is our partner for Food Truck Carnival and Pirate Fest. So I wouldn't necessarily say that there's like set discounts, but we work with everybody on what they're looking for.
I would say our primary goal is just to, if people have interest, we're going to find a package that really fits. And it's kind of, a menu at a restaurant is the same thing. If you just wanted a chicken cutlet and a side of potatoes, you could do that too. And that's what a lot of our sponsors do, is they come and they look at the package and then they go, well, what I really want is X, or what I really want is be in front of this audience or this size audience or this age person or whatnot. And then we pair them based on that. And Ashley does a really good job working with organizations in that way.
Great.
So I'm going to show a short video. It's about 5 minutes long. It actually comes from a longer video that we'll be posting on Channel 8 in just a few weeks. The original idea about the 15-minute version was really to talk about how much teamwork is necessary to produce festivals in Northglenn. And this is just a shortened version for tonight's.
I've seen Northglenn grow from just a small hometown feel. We still have that, but we're also becoming more of a destination place. And so it's grown quite a bit.
Our average age is right around 33, 34. So it's a really young and exciting group of people that are looking for diverse activities and opportunities. They love to get outdoors and experience all that we have to offer here in Northglenn.
They're kind of breaking the mold and doing something different.
For all that Denver has to offer, and there's so much to do here, still, I feel like we're kind of lacking when it comes to really unique events. That I feel like whenever we get one, the entire community flocks out to it, because we're starved for that.
As the city continues to mature, and we're in our 50th anniversary, we just keep getting cooler.
In the city government, there's a group of people, the council and the mayor, we're always kind of looking forward to say, what do they feel like the people that live in the community want that'll make the community better? What can we create for these constituent groups that are not being hit by the events that are already being planned in the community?
When I was hired, the Northglenn City Council decided that it was important to them to start having regional style events. We were brought into Northglenn to start those from scratch.
Northglenn's always had their traditional events, things like July 4th, the Kids Fishing Derby. But since Stephen and I have been working together, we're working on creating new regional size events that are bringing people from the Denver metro area. And our new events have been the Pirate Fest, Food Truck Carnival, and Magic Fest.
When we found Stephen Stokes, he was a catch because he's just incredible at what he does. And then later, Ashley Garst. So as they came in and started partnering with all of us that were already here, they really took it to the next level.
Our events team is Stephen and I, but we're a lot more than a team of two. Every department of the city has an impact with us. It's really exciting who I get to work with.
I think the team is incredible. They really do all the hard work, I think. It's kind of nice as a producer that I have the Northglenn team to support and figure out all the logistics for handling the several thousand people showing up to attend this festival.
Well, so I go with my grandma sometimes, my mom, my dad, my neighbor Ryan, and it's really fun. You get to hang out and you get to make good memories, and it's lots of smiles.
But at all the festivals, I mean, I'm always there, helping sling the beer and serving drinks. I guess I've gotten pretty good at it. No, I've never been a bartender or anything like that before.
And the first year of Food Truck Carnival, Andrea and her husband came out to the event, and they've both been chefs at different restaurants. And they said, we think we can do this. So they, residents of Northglenn, they created their first food truck called Chino Taco. I've seen them at other events, and they were at Top Taco this year. They took third place. And so it's really fun to know that just because we had an event at the city, they came up with them for a business idea. Now they're taking awards in the community for their tacos. Every person I work at the event somehow becomes a partner to the event, and I'm rooting for their success as well.
I see Northglenn as being a great place to start. It's a great place to start a business. It's a great place to start your family. So it really is a place for beginnings.
Sponsoring the events in Northglenn has been a way for us to get our name out into the community. It's probably our #1 marketing tool. We've got, I'd say, half of our customers through those events, and we really enjoy being part of those.
I think Northglenn is going to continue to thrive and grow. We have a new Justice Center. We have so many events going on. We have a master plan for a new Civic Center complex. We're getting a new recreation center, which is amazing. But I think it has shown us that we can continue to be strong and mighty, even though we're small.
You know, every community has to evolve. And I think, Northglenn started out as one type of community. As development has happened around it, it's changed. As we've created these festivals and programs, it's changed again. And as we do new development within our Civic Center campus, things are going to change again and shift again. And the opportunities are looking great for our future. And I look forward to whatever gets created next.
Should have said.
Very nice. Yeah, super good.
Well, we've only showed that to a few people, Ashley and I and Paula, so we're excited that you had an opportunity to see it.
Very cool.
Good, good, good. So back to our presentation.
Thank you for sharing that. That was
Yeah,
great.
you're super welcome.
That's awesome.
You do know we don't do your evaluation, right?
I understand.
So to kind of explain what goes into pulling all of that off, planning obviously a process, and there's some examples of the different types of stages that we go through with each event. And we build long timelines. Our timelines are for a year or 7+ items that we're usually working on. 700, sorry. Thanks.
You're welcome.
So we work on overlapping timelines, meaning that we're working on multiple events at the same time. So we kind of outlined a really rough schedule of what the year kind of looks like there, but keep in mind that since it's rolling, we're always working on something different. As Food Truck Carnival comes up, the deadlines for July 4th will be happening, and so on and so forth. So our regional festivals take a lot of time and groundwork to build to that point, and the most important thing that we do around those is really building the brand. It's the brand that makes the event successful and anticipated, and anticipation is a big deal for us. We like to hear that everybody at Pirate Festival is looking forward to Pirate Fest next year. That builds in some longevity for the program. And a big part of what we're doing every year as we're planning and working on projects is we're looking for partners, and a lot of those partners are like the nonprofits that you talked about. When we're looking for partners for events, we have to find them, involve them, empower them, and retain them are kind of the ways that we look at that. A lot of the partners that we work with regularly are like the SCA, that's the Society of Creative Anachronism. We work with the Sea Scouts, which is a co-ed scouting group, as well as many of the nonprofits in the area. And we also want to make sure that what they're doing at the event goes back to their mission in the community, so it has a long-term impact. And a big part of keeping the events fresh is having something new at each of our established events every year so that it's always fresh.
Perfect. So I'm going to talk a little bit about sustainability events. I was on the sustainability team in 2018 with Becky in planning and other members of the organization. And so it didn't really fit in any particular place in the presentation, so I'm going to cover it here before we talk about our next topic. But we did work with both the planning department. The planning department was able to help get a grant to get trash cans at our events this year. And then we worked with consultant EcoCycle to help with diverting the recycling and the compost. So about 2,500 pounds of recycling and 400 pounds of compost. Why compost is lower is the only event that we did that was at Pirate Festival. We'll continue composting in the future at other events. So our thinking at the beginning of the year is if we did recycling and trash collection, that would be enough. But as we learned through the year and working with EcoCycle, they would goalie at each event, and what a goalie means is that they would work with either their team or volunteers to go through each and every trash can on site at the event and pull the recycling out of the trash and put it in recycling, or in reverse, pull something that somebody put in recycling and put it in the trash can to make sure it's going in the right place. But one of their suggestions was if you have a recyclable plate or a compostable plate or compostable napkin and you have food on it, you can put that in a compost bin. So at Pirate Festival, we went and invested in addition to compost bins, 40 additional compost bins at that event, and that's where we composted. And we'll continue that in the future. I know in the event world, there's this interest in being, having zero waste. That means with working with all of our suppliers and all of our contractors and even vendors in some cases, and how people achieve zero waste is by having their vendors take their trash with them. So it's not necessarily that there's no waste left at the event that's not recycled, but we're not there yet. That's something we'll continue to work on, and we're just going to get better at it. We learned a lot in terms of what staffing was necessary, how much time it took, what kind of bags we needed, how many roll-offs did we need, all of that we really learned this year. So I think we'll be in a much better place, even how many volunteers we needed to run that. We learned a lot about that this year.
Stephen, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
So you mentioned that we are looking to do some more contracting next year, potentially with EcoCycle.
Right.
Is that for every event that we're going to be doing, the large ones?
Is Becky still on? She's not. That was a contract that Becky set up. I don't know that it's necessary to do it at every event. Mm-hmm. Like this year, we had a goalie at kids fishing at the Derby Day event. But they were more giving us ideas about it. I don't see that event as being large enough to have a contract staff. I think our Parks Department has learned enough now. And because we have recycling and compost bins, we probably don't need their services. But what's really helpful is at those larger events, the 3, or really the 4 large events. One of the things that they did there at each one, they had the goalies at the trash cans, but then in addition, they had a team that was at the actual roll-off that went through each and every plastic bag. And, okay, that's recycling, that's compost, that's trash.
Have we explored doing anything like particularly Food Truck Carnival? Because it's just such a large event. I mean,
Right.
50,000 folks is more than the residents who live in Northglenn. So
Right.
it's a whole lot of trash in a couple of days.
Right.
Have we explored doing anything around not allowing styrofoam containers
Yes.
as part of our sustainability efforts for those events?
Yes, and we did do that with our vendors at Pirate Festival, and we'll roll that in to do composting at Food Truck Carnival. So we'll ask each of our trucks to use compostable materials versus styrofoam.
That's great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so as we're looking forward, one concept that we just wanted to touch on was the idea of event fatigue, which is something that's impacting communities all over, not just us. So event fatigue is kind of the idea of, festival and large event burnout within the market. And this was a topic that there was a panel around at the recent Colorado Festivals and Events Association, so everybody is thinking about it. Some cities are scaling back and, focusing on certain things more. Some cities are, looking at the economic impacts and things like that. Event fatigue, I wanted to touch on internally and externally. Internally, it looks at, how we're using our staff, how we're using our money and our other resources. And then when you're thinking about event fatigue externally, that's thinking about our citizens when it comes to the demands on their time and their money, as well as are they getting tired of the impacts it's having on the city as a whole. We also want to be aware of the idea of exhausted ideas. Colorado has so many beer festivals, so we want to make sure that we're not perpetuating fatigue in a certain area or concept. And we always want to focus on creating quality over quantity.
I think the part of the reason we're bringing up this kind of what new events take is because, we finished the 3 festivals in 3 years. We're on 5 years with Pirate Fest. So at some point in the future, it'll either be, are we going to add more events to our schedule, or are we going to change one of the events that we already have and make it something else? So that's why we're looking to say, what would we add that would add substance, that would be of great value to the community and the residents or the citizens that are coming to the events. We want to continue to have the unique events, I think, and we've actually received now, this is the first year, and last year one, and a few more this year, receiving inquiries from other communities saying, you've been really successful with these new style events. And as things are changing, I personally would say, gone are the days of an event that's been around for 20 years. People really want new, different, and often. And so I think that the event market will continue to change. Some of the longest running events in the Denver market are going away and are being replaced with these fun new branded kinds of events. And so we want to keep up with that. I think we've done a good job of creating them on the first round with the requests that you made. And so we want to continue that as the process goes on. I know that some counselors have asked me in the past, or other people have asked, why can't we do events in other places other than around E.B. Raines Park in terms of the large festivals? So this is a map of the city, obviously. And we went and looked to say, what are the spaces where we could do events either now or in the future? I think with Carl's Farm, obviously, until that's a redeveloped space, it doesn't make sense to do it there, but it might be a great place for an event in the future. Always when we look at Northwest Open Space, we're looking to see, who's on the fields already and how would an event with 15,000 people a day, as an example, impact the turf, and what would be the bounce back on that? And is there enough parking, frankly, at the space? Can we do an event there? As an example, Food Truck Carnival, which I'll be talking about in a moment, we looked and we said, yeah, we could do the event there, but then we wouldn't have enough space for parking. And so we have to look at that each time. Dennehy and Wyco Park both would be good spaces in terms of the amount of turf that's there, but the impact to the community and the parking may become an issue if we had large events there. So it could be something for a smaller event, and we have smaller community events. I'm going to talk about the marketplace here in just a few moments, and then I'll also just mention with Stonehawker, we are looking at a smaller event in Stonehawker in 2020, and I'll explain that in just a few slides. So each time we look at a festival, in addition to event fatigue and the other items that we mentioned, we're looking just to say, are the resources there that we need? Is there enough parking, or is there a remote shuttle option? And there are some events that have done really great remote locations. Kids Spree in Aurora is one. It's no longer around, but they ran their entire event in a park that required shuttle service for their entire crowd. And they had about 5,000 people a day, and they ran multiple shuttles. And we also want to have access to potable water in any of the communities that we're in, any of the spaces that we're in. You would be surprised at the amount of water we go through at one of our festivals for our vendors, especially food vendors that need that. And then it is helpful to have office space for either staff respite or just organization. We try to be really, really organized and have everything printed out, but we definitely come back at every single event and are printing things out in City Hall. Okay, good. And then one of the things that we are able to do now and have been doing for our festivals is there are a number of resources that we bring. Power, restrooms, stages, all the production gear, that's rented for every event. It's not something the city has, nor does it need, based on the cost and the number of times that we use it. And then we're also looking at the impacts, and I know that we talked about that just briefly before. How would it impact the community, the area, your neighborhood, if we had a festival in your community? So knowing that we're running a bit short here towards the end of our schedule, I want to just talk about what's next for festivals in Northglenn. Obviously, the biggest one is Food Truck Carnival. So you can see on the slide is a possibility of actually canceling Food Truck Carnival. It is not our first choice. And Jenny, this is an update since I saw you at Parks Board. We have approached the marketplace to ask them if they'd be interested in hosting Food Truck Carnival. We've given them several options to look and consider. One would be the parking lot on the west side of where the new Harkins Theater will be, and then using Kennedy, the park behind where the sculpture garden is, and that street. And so it would be a great combination for us because it's enough space for parking, it's enough space for the carnival, and then behind the building is city property, so we have access to close the street and do that. Brad with HPC, I've talked to him several times now, and he asked us for a couple other maps in case we needed to pull it inside. They're still working on the construction schedule for Harkins, and he had some concerns about our primary location, and so we're working towards that. The main thing is that for us, we're already starting to plan for food truck, and right now we're a little bit waiting. We need to know by December, basically, whether he can do it or not, or whether the marketplace can host us or not. By January, last year it was January, I think 15th, where we registered our food trucks. And so we just, if we push too much later, we're gonna run out of time and we wanna do a good quality event. So that's what we're grappling with. We could technically do it here, but we have concerns about the safety. We've lost 400 parking spaces with the construction of our new beautiful building and street. We've also lost just some of the connectivity. So we're looking at it. Nobody wants to lose Food Truck Carnival, I'm sure. But it is if they say no, then we're just really gonna have to look. Can we do it here? We'd have if we did it on this property, we'd have the carnival in the rec center parking lot. The rec center would be closed and all the food trucks would be in EB Rains, but then the street would be open. And that would be, it's a bit of a challenge in terms of the number of people. It's gonna be an impact for us through the construction project for all of our festivals. We will move Magic Fest to the north side of the Recreation Center, and we've figured out a way to do that. We're talking about a shorter day for July 4th, moving it into the afternoon, which matches many other communities. They have shorter July 4th, and that would work for us as well. And then with Pirate Fest, our primary challenge there is just parking. As I said, we did a count on Pirate Fest today on Saturday to say, how many cars are we parking behind City Hall, and there were 385 at our highest. So we're displacing 385 plus additional parking for the side that we've lost and the east. So we just have to continue to grapple with that and communicate with the people attending the event that the RTD parking lot is a viable solution with over 1,000 parking spaces there. And do we have to program, along the path, and how do we make that an easy, accessible thing for families and for community members? As I mentioned, and I'll just mention quickly now, we are talking with the Northglenn Arts and Humanities Foundation and the Northglenn Historic Preservation Foundation to create one new series of events next year where we would do house concerts at Stonehawker. I've talked briefly with Joyce about it, and she was excited about the idea, and NAHF has the funding to do it, and we'd work with them on some concerts inside the building, which would be really fun. Obviously, next year, we're going to continue maintaining and growing our current festivals and looking towards the future. As the new recreation center comes online and street opens and other areas open, then we'll look forward to future programming. I'd certainly like to do an event in the rec center. Personally, I think there's a need in this area for a really fun, more modern day craft fair. We used to have a craft fair in the rec center, and we get calls on it every year. We do not your grandmother's craft fair style with some craft beer and some other things to make it our style, and then some other programming and cooperative. The one thing I did want to say is Ashley attended a conference earlier this year, and one thing we're looking at as well is an arts and events program where we bring a traveling sculpture type presentation and do a festival or an event around that. Again, that's not a now phenomenon. That would be a future 2021, 2022. And if we have to cancel Food Truck Carnival, we have to have a few tricks up our sleeves so we get that festival replaced in short order. So.
Can I ask you just real quick?
Absolutely.
Not really a question, it's a throw at you.
Okay.
You know how we did the Run Paddle Run?
Yes.
I've had a lot of requests from people about doing something like that on a grander scale, like the Trojan Mud Races or something like that.
Yep.
So can you think about that, see if there's any way that we can bring something like that to Northglenn? Because we didn't have a huge gathering at Run Paddle Run, but we had people come from Colorado Springs, we had people come from Wyoming and Fort Collins to do that, so I think it would be awesome to look at it and see. I don't want to take the other one away, but.
Well, I think something like that would probably be a subcontracted kind of a thing. Last year we had an Italian car festival come, and there were over $5 million of cars in E.B. Rain's parking lot. That was a subcontracted event. It was a one-day program, and so maybe there's something like that, and that might fit better. It's certainly with Ashley and my, I'm not fit enough to run Tough Mudder, but.
Me either, but apparently some of my friends and some of my residents are.
Very good. No, it's a great suggestion. Thank you.
Sign me up.
So, first off, I'm going to start off with a comment.
Sure.
I really appreciate all of the work that you guys have done, because when the previous council put forth this challenge of create festivals for Northglenn, you guys really took the ball and you ran with it, and you made something absolutely fantastic.
Thank you.
And I think it's really come to define a lot of the character in our city, and really kind of help start the snowball effect of Northglenn kind of reinventing itself. So I really see you guys as really kind of catalysts of that. It was an open-ended request. You guys just ran with it, and it was fantastic. So my only comment is, I hope we don't have to lose food truck, but I totally understand because of the construction. I could see where, a lot of our festivals are so, essential for this area, and unfortunately, construction is construction. And I trust you guys are going to make the right decision. But one thing I would like to do is just, put out that challenge out there again of what's next.
Yep.
Northglenn, you guys have been extremely successful with these festivals. You've really put us on the map. So how are you guys going to help us take it to the next level? So I'm really excited to see what you guys come up with.
Great, thank you. Jen.
Thank you, Antonio. I totally echo Councilmember Mollica's comments. I feel like the festivals that you all put on every year really help showcase Northglenn and bring new folks to our community, but also kind of build this sense of place that's really special, where there's a little bit of something for everyone. So thank you for all of that. I also really love the idea of knowing what's next. Pirate Fest and Magic Fest and Food Truck Carnival have been great for the last 5 years, but I too want to know, like, where are you going next and how can we support that? Because obviously there's an appetite for it. I do have 2 questions about 2 different events. The first is, we've heard some, excitement expressed about possibly turning the powwow into a larger event with the city and moving it from Stonehawker to another location. Is that something that you all are actively exploring or considering?
We haven't been involved in the powwow since first year, where we met with the group and talked about where it would be located and that sort of thing. We could be involved in the conversation again, but we haven't been. It became an event that just was at Stonehawker, but honestly, we've not been involved in any conversations nor in any of the planning. And in fact, I think they were challenged last year in that we didn't communicate. I mean, our calendar comes out well in advance. I know already the date for Pirate in 2022, but they were on the same day as we were last year for Pirate Fest on Saturday. And I think that how can they not be challenged by having a, even just in terms of the way that we market and communicate, that there are 2 events happening. We're going to favor an event that we're doing over an event from an outside community source. But to answer your question in short, we haven't looked at it, but would be willing to.
I mean, I think it would be great, especially in terms of coordinating with them to make sure that there's not overlap so that both events can be appropriately showcased as well as attended. So
Right.
that's something I would appreciate, because I know they had expressed when they were here at council that they wanted to do more with the city. And perhaps they may not know exactly how to do that. I don't want to make assumptions either way.
If I can just interject real briefly, Amanda and I are going to be meeting with representatives of the powwow here in the next couple weeks. I was looking at my calendar to find the date, but I can't find it on the spur of the moment. So we had met with them earlier this year when they had expressed interest, and it was too late to make the shift from Stonehawker to another park this year. So we are going to partner with them and walk them through the process and help identify a better location. They've initially expressed interest in E.B. Rains Park. So that's underway, and we'll provide council with updates as we move forward in the process.
That's great. My other question is, I know that we regularly have concerts in the park as well as movies in the park. How will those be impacted? I assume they're not as well as attended as perhaps Food Truck Carnival, but do you envision being able to ever move some of the movies in the park out into some of the smaller parks?
Both the movies in the park and the concerts in the park are done by the theater department.
Okay.
By Michael's programming. So I think it would be a good question for him. I mean, outside of that, I couldn't say. Is it possible? Is it realistic and possible? I can't see why not.
Okay, I appreciate that. I didn't understand that there was a split in terms of what piece they were taking versus what you all were taking, so thanks for that clarification.
You're welcome. And I think that probably started prior to my arrival. The theater department has handled the summer concerts and summer movies since I was here the last time I was here, and there was just one of that planner, so.
Great, well, I'll keep my fingers crossed that the marketplace works out. I think that could be a really fun way to change up Food Truck Carnival and try something new.
It would be great. It would be great. We actually approached them for Food Truck Carnival the first year, and they weren't interested in the event at the time. They had different owners, so it's changed quite a bit since then. And now at least we've had some conversation, and they at least know what we're doing and things like that. So I think it would be a great way to save and grow the program.
You'll know more.
I echo all the sentiment. Both of you are amazing. You worked so hard. Tirelessly, actually. It's much appreciated. Thinking about the what's next, I've had quite a few residents, surprisingly, ask about bringing back a parade and how to. I get the sentiment was that it was like a really community pride focus.
Right.
And where that fits in the year, I don't know. I know there's other cities that do them weekly. I'm not asking for that. I'm not asking for that. But thinking through what might that do, what might that look like. It doesn't have to be on 4th of July, it could have a completely different purpose. But it surprised me, it was, I don't know, 5 or 6 people brought it up. Because it is more Northglenn pride, less regional, showcase.
right.
So I think there's a different purpose, but I thought it was worth bringing up.
Yeah, it's worthwhile. I was here when we did the parade during July 4th. I can't remember if it was either 2 or 3 years, and it ran up from, now all the businesses, of course, have changed, but Mile High Thrift Store, where they are located, down to E.B. Rains.
Yeah.
And then we ended it, so it was just a one-way, it didn't go in a complete circle. And
Yeah.
we ended at Ramada, or someplace near there, disbanded, and then it went back, and we had the street closed. So it did work. It was a little bit of a challenge there because it blocked residents into their, along the apartments as the apartments got built.
Right.
There's no way out from those locations during the time of the parade. So that's partly why we stopped doing it at that time. But it's
Okay.
not to say that it couldn't be in another area, another location.
Yeah, or even another date.
Absolutely.
I love the idea.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Thank you for the great presentation, the great work, and we'll look forward to see what lies ahead.
Thank you. We will always be creating what's next, that's for sure. Thank you.
Is there any further business for council?
Nope.
And we're adjourned.
Said it again. Thank you, Susan.
I started to go down the second you bring up.
I know, it's a snack, water. No.
City Council meeting of November the 18th, 2019. Joanne, would you call the roll, please?
Mayor Escobar,
Here?
Mayor Pro Tem Leidy,
Here.
Councilmember Sowers.
Here.
Councilmember Rodriguez is absent, Councilmember Downing is absent, Councilmember Brown.
Here.
Councilmember Whitman is absent, Councilmember Duran Mullica.
Here.
Councilmember Wilford.
Here.
Join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Response to citizens' inquiry, Heather, do we have any?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Escobar. For the month of October, I'm providing the CRM monthly stats for council and the community. We had a total of 116 requests opened in October. That's up by 48 year over year. We had 105 requests closed. That was up by 25. The three, in terms of the three request methods, 28% of contacts were made via the website. 10% employee entered either by phone or email to see. Of the four most requested topics, those included graffiti as number one, abandoned shopping carts as number two, general code enforcement concerns as the third top requested, and then abandoned vehicle on public property as the fourth. In terms of request closeout timeframe, 65 were closed out within 3 days, 26 between 4 and 7 days, 9 between 8 and 11 days, and 7 of those requests took 12 days or more. And for the public's benefit, typically when I report out on something like that, those requests are more involved related to code enforcement and aren't simple closeout requests, or they require another agency's involvement in responding to those requests. Something new that I'm adding this month is reporting out on satisfaction survey results. And so there are 4 questions that users of the CRM are asked to report back on if they so choose, which is employee effectiveness. And we received 10 requests rated as superior, 7 as good. We did receive 1 below and 1 poor. In terms of time to respond, 13 were superior, 7 were good, and then 2 were rated poor. Of employee courtesy, 13 were rated superior, 5 good, and then we had 1 below and then 2 poor. And then expectations met, 9 exceeded expectations, and then 5 below expectations. So as I move forward with working with this data, my plan is to start having my office make contact with individuals who respond with their satisfaction level being below or poor. So that's something that once I get the new assistant to the city manager on board and we can start doing more with metrics, we'll start reaching out to residents and finding out more about how we could have served residents better.
Heather, are you following up on the ones that were poor now, though? Because I think that those need to be followed up on.
Department directors do that on their own, but that hasn't necessarily been centralized since I've been on board. I can't speak to whether or not that was done in the past prior to my arrival.
Right.
But I know staff follows up on those, but not necessarily from my office. So I think that it's important for the city manager's office to reach out and say, we're sorry we didn't meet your level of expectation. But oftentimes they are followed up on. If the resident or the citizen wants a response, sometimes they don't, and they indicate that.
You know that this is your first time reporting on survey. So we don't know in the past if we've had any other, because to me, poor is not status, it's a complaint, and should be addressed. So have we done anything with those in the past?
Let me talk with leadership team, and then I'll let you know.
I'm good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Heather. Additions or deletions from the agenda, are there any? Hearing none. Okay, we have several proclamations. If the council will meet me down below, we will get going. Okay. Are we on?
Should be.
Can you hear me now? Thank you. So we started this program at the beginning of the year, the Citizen Recognition Program, and I think we're pretty close. Where's our city manager? Oh, she stepped out. I think we're pretty close to the 50th person being recognized, so we're not too far off, and we got a few more meetings, and maybe we can get to 50 or maybe even surpass 50. First person up is Ross Burney. Are you here, Ross? How are you, sir, my friend? Good to see you. Thank you.
May I get next to the mayor?
You can be the vice mayor for the next 5 minutes. It gives me great honor to recognize Ross because when I came into CPAN, he was the one running the show, and he was a great teacher and mentor to me. So to me, it's a great privilege to recognize Ross. So the proclamation reads, whereas the city of Northglenn celebrates the 50th anniversary in 2019, and whereas the city is celebrating residents whose contributions have positively affected the city and the lives of others, and whereas Ross Burney is a longtime resident and has been a very active volunteer in the community, and whereas Ross has been a member of the Citizens Police Academy Alumni Association of Northglenn, a group who volunteers their time to support the Northglenn Police Department, and whereas Ross has volunteered his time with the Farmers Highland Canal Cleanup, is a trail and park partner, and has been involved in many special projects, including performing graffiti removal throughout the city. And whereas Ross is described as being a kind and caring person, and whereas Ross' selfless actions demonstrate generosity and kindness, and the city of Northglenn is proud to have outstanding residents like Ross in the community, and whereas Ross has gone above and beyond to make a difference and help others, and whereas Ross has positively impacted the lives and living conditions of individuals and the community at large. Now, therefore, I, Antonio B. Escobar, Mayor of the City of Northglenn, Colorado, hereby congratulate Ross Burney for being honored by fellow residents, City Council, and myself for his contributions to the City of Northglenn, dated at Northglenn, Colorado, this 18th day of November, 2019. Congratulations, sir. Would you like to say a few words?
Very few.
Okay.
No, I just say it was fun being a volunteer. I still wish my health was good enough that I could continue it. But I moved into Northglenn in Labor Day weekend, 1970. So I've been here for a few years.
I wasn't even born then. So Ross, we're going to ask you to come back up for a picture after we've done all the proclamations, okay?
You'll break the camera.
Not my camera. Okay, next is Shannon Burns. Shannon? Proclamation reads, whereas the city of Northglenn celebrates its 50th anniversary in 2019, and whereas the city is celebrating residents whose contributions have positively affected the city and the lives of others, and whereas Sharon Burns helps her neighbor with numerous small jobs around the house and by driving her to run errands, and whereas Shannon's actions continually demonstrate generosity, kindness, and consideration toward her neighbor, and whereas Shannon's neighbor feels very lucky to have such a great neighbor and friend, and whereas Shannon's caring spirit and willingness to help others exemplifies how good neighbors improve and enhance our community, and whereas the city of Northglenn is proud to have outstanding residents in the community, and whereas Shannon has made a significant contribution to improving the quality of life of others. Now, therefore, I, Antonio B. Escobar, Mayor of the City of Northglenn, Colorado, hereby congratulate Shannon. Sharon, I've called her Sharon twice and Shannon 6 times. Were you counting? For being honored by fellow resident, city council, and myself for her contribution to the city of Northglenn, dated at Northglenn, Colorado, this 18th day of November, 2019. Okay, next up is Marge Carlo. Marge? Proclamation reads, whereas the city of Northglenn celebrates its 50th anniversary in 2019, and whereas the city is celebrating residents whose contributions have positively affected the city and the lives of others, and whereas Marge Carlo has been a public servant for the city of Northglenn and for a number of years, and has previously served as a member of city council representing the ward residents of Ward 2, and whereas while serving as an elected official, Marge was described by others as being strong, steady, informed, and as having dedicated long hours to who wrote this word? Consistently represented her constituents, and whereas Marge has served the city as a member of the Northglenn Urban Renewal Authority, the Citizens Affairs Board, Parks and Recreation Board, Advisory Board, Water and Sanitation Board, and the Victim Assistance and Law Enforcement Board, and whereas Marge was a member of the Planning Committee for the Webster Lake Relay for Life to benefit American Cancer Society, and was instrumental in coordinating the Cancer Survivors and Caregivers Brunch as part of the annual fundraising event. And whereas Marge is described by fellow residents as being dedicated to raising money for worthy causes, a thoughtful leader, and just a classy lady.
Is that on there, Antonio?
And whereas Marge has made significant contribution to improve the quality and the life of others, and whereas Marge has inspired others and has previously impacted the lives and living conditions of individuals and the community at large, now therefore I, Antonio B. Escobar, Mayor of the City of Northglenn, Colorado, hereby congratulate Marge Carlo for being honored by fellow residents, City Council, and myself for her contributions to the City of Northglenn. Dated at Northglenn, Colorado, this 18th day of November, 2019. Congratulations, Marge. Next up is Marty Follett. Marty? Welcome. Okay. This proclamation reads, whereas the city of Northglenn celebrates its 50th anniversary in 2019, and whereas the city is celebrating residents whose contributions have positively affected the city and the lives of others, and whereas Mary Follett is a longtime resident and has been very active volunteer in the community, and whereas Marty has been a member of the Citizens Police Academy Alumni Association of Northglenn, a group who volunteers their time to support the Northglenn Police Department, and whereas Marty has been a crew member for the Farmers Highland Canal Cleanup, a trail and park partner, and has shoveled snow for residents as a snow stormer. And whereas Marty has volunteered her time to serve as a judge for the Neighborhood Beautification Program and has also been a flower bed partner working to keep Northglenn beautiful. And whereas Marty's selfless actions demonstrate generosity and kindness, and the city of Northglenn is proud to have an outstanding resident like Marty in our community. And whereas Marty has made a significant contribution to improve the quality of life of others, and whereas Marty has gone above and beyond to make a difference in our community and inspire others to give back. Now, therefore, I, Antonio B. Escobar, Mayor of the City of Northglenn, Colorado, hereby congratulate Marty Follett for being honored by her fellow residents, City Council, and myself for her contributions to the City of Northglenn. Dated at Northglenn, Colorado, this 18th day of November 2019. Mary Murphy. Proclamation reads as follows. Whereas the city of Northglenn celebrates its 50th anniversary in 2019, and whereas the city is celebrating residents whose contributions have positively affected the city and the lives of others, and whereas Mary Murphy, as a massage therapist who has provided free foot and neck massages at the Northglenn Senior Center for the past 6 years, and whereas Mary's devotion of her time and talents to individuals at the Senior Center demonstrates her caring spirit, and whereas Mary recognizes the importance of connecting with others, and her selfless actions have not gone unnoticed. And whereas Mary's actions continually demonstrate generosity, kindness, and consideration toward the well-being of others, and whereas Mary has gone above and beyond to make a difference in our community and inspire others to give back, and whereas Mary has made significant contribution to improve the quality of life of others, now therefore I, Antonio B. Escobar, Mayor of the City of Northglenn, Colorado, hereby congratulate Mary Murphy for being honored by fellow residents, City Council, and myself for her contributions to the City of Northglenn, dated at Northglenn, Colorado, this 18th day of November, 2019. Grayson Saylor. Are you Grayson? Awesome. How are you? All right. I'm going to get down here with you, okay? You can sit down too if you want to. I learned this when I was working in public schools, that when you're talking to young people and smaller than you need to come down to their level. What do you think? Yeah, I think that's right. So do you want to help me read this? Or follow me along? Can you read some? The proclamation says, whereas the city of Northglenn celebrates its 50th anniversary in 2019, and whereas the city is celebrating residents whose contributions have positively affected the city and the lives of others, and whereas At 5 years old, a big part of Grayson Saylor's life is about making people smile. And whereas Grayson pays deep attention to what makes people tick and looks for ways to turn things into opportunities to make them happy. And whereas Grayson shows kindness by sharing flowers with her neighbors, who loves gardening and also compliments people in the grocery store based on their observable qualities. Can you tell me what that looks like, an observable quality? You probably tell them, you look nice today, right? Yes. And whereas Grayson's focus is speaking kindness, is inspiring to those around her, and whereas, in the words of her neighbor, if we could all be a little bit more like Grayson, I think the world would be a brighter place. And whereas Grayson is making a contribution to improve the quality of life of others, and where Grayson inspires others and has positively impacted individuals in her community. Now, therefore, I, Antonio B. Escobar, Mayor of the City of Northglenn, Colorado, hereby congratulate Grayson Saylor for being honored by her fellow residents, City Council, and myself for her contributions to the City of Northglenn. Dated at Northglenn, Colorado, this 18th day of November 2019. Is that something or is that something? Forever. Congratulations. Oh, wait a minute. Go down the line here. You want to say some words? Yeah. Some of those. Oh.
I be nice to other people and I listen to them.
Awesome.
Oh, you're gonna shake their hands?
Good job, thank you so much. I think you should go and get your picture taken as a junior mayor.
It's time for the group photo, right? Yeah. Antonio, can we do the group photo first?
Yes. Would
Everybody
the
who's received
recipients
it on wartime.
please come forward for a group photo? So that was Ross, Shannon, Marge, Marty, Mary, and Grayson.
Good. All right, are we ready? 1, 2, 3. Again, 1, 2, 3. Couple more, just in case, all right? Okay, thanks, everybody.
I think that stole the show. What do you think? Pretty amazing. Crystal Moss. So Crystal Moss is accepting on behalf of the Hmong American Association of Colorado. Proclamation reads, whereas the Hmong American Association of Colorado will be celebrating the Hmong New Year on Saturday, November the 30th, 2019, and whereas the association's mission is to promote, unite, and strengthen the Hmong communities in the state of Colorado through cultural, social, and educational activities, and whereas an estimated 6,500 Hmong individuals currently live in Colorado and are the descendants of American allies during the Vietnam War. And whereas Hmong New Year is traditionally celebrated at the end of the harvest season in Laos, which usually falls between late November and early December. And whereas after a year of hard work, Hmong families would put away their farm tools and pull out their best attire to celebrate the harvest and the end of the traditional year. And whereas Hmong New Year celebrations continue in the United States and include cultural performances, traditional folk songs, food, dances, sports tournaments, pageants, and other social events. And whereas the Hmong Americans are helping build vibrant and diverse communities in Colorado, contributing culturally, socially, politically, economically to our state. And whereas the city of Northglenn welcomes diversity and celebrates the history, the culture, and the contribution of Hmong Americans in Colorado. Now, therefore, I, Antonio B. Escobar, Mayor of the City of Northglenn, Colorado, do hereby recognize Hmong New Year and wish good fortune and renewal of all celebrating this important traditional holiday, dated at Northglenn, Colorado, this 18th day of November, 2019.
Thank you for inviting me for this proclamation, accepting this. We invite everybody to come to our event. It is on Thanksgiving weekend, so I understand everyone's going to be very busy, but it's on Saturday, November 30th. So we will be there all day.
Where will that be?
It's going to be at Adams County Fairgrounds up in Brighton.
Awesome. Meet our council. Thank you.
Okay.
Oh,
Nice try. Okay, we get cozy. Are you ready? 1, 2, 3. Again. Last one. All right.
The last one is for National Homeless and Hunger Awareness. Melanie Rohr. All right. Proclamation. Whereas the National Hunger and Homeless Awareness Week is held each year the week before Thanksgiving and serves as an important reminder that many residents a lack of food or a safe, stable place to call home are preventing them from reaching their full potential. And whereas nearly 22,000 Colorado children and youth, together with their families and thousands of seniors, veterans, and other residents, do not have a safe, stable place to call home, 1 in 8 Colorado children go hungry, and nearly 628,000 Coloradans are food insecure. Whereas the City of Northglenn will host its annual warm coat, hat, glove, and sock drive and holiday food drive to assist organizations who are addressing these needs within the community. And whereas the City of Northglenn has provided grant funding and sponsorships to assist local food banks, homeless shelters, and other agencies that provide human services to support those experiencing hunger and homelessness. And whereas the City of Northglenn is committed to ensuring that every member of our community is able to achieve their full potential, and we believe that if we all work together, hunger and homelessness are solvable issues. Now, therefore, I, Antonio B. Escobar, Mayor of the City of Northglenn, Colorado, do hereby proclaim this week of November 16th through the 24th, 2019 as National Hunger and Homeless Awareness Week in the city of Northglenn, and urge all residents to speak up in support of efforts to end homelessness and hunger and take actions such as volunteering, donating needed items, and supporting efforts by public leaders to increase affordable housing opportunities and food security with the goal of ending homelessness and hunger, dated at Northglenn, Colorado, this 18th day of November 2019. Congratulations.
I want to say thank you for inviting us to accept the proclamation. We did recently receive a wonderful grant from the city in the amount of $6,000. So I really want to say thank you for that. But I also wanted to mention that I brought some of my key volunteers tonight because the volunteers are really the true heroes and the heart of our food bank. There's another one out in the audience that could have joined us. But really, our food bank would not be in operation without the volunteers. So they're here with me tonight to accept the proclamation because they do so much good work for us. So thank you all again for inviting us.
Joe Bissett, stand up and be recognized. Joe Bissett.
You guys want to get up and we'll have a first?
Come on up here. Come on up here. You
All right, ready? 1, 2, 3. Again, 1, 2, 3. Last one. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you for everything you do. Thank you. Thank you.
That's who we are. Always balanced it out.
That's what makes this all so much fun. You never know what to expect. I read the proclamation, but I didn't get the 5-year-old.
That was amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Yeah, I read this, and then I'm thinking, 5 years old? I thought it was like 5 years that I was doing this. All right, next item on the agenda is public invited to be heard, limited to 5 minutes per speaker. Statements shall be related to city business and limited to matters of community interest. Anybody signed up, Joanne?
Oh, wait, is that happening now?
Anybody sign in?
Nobody signed up. There may be someone in the audience who might want to speak, but no one signed up in advance.
But they left.
Nobody cares anymore. Maybe not.
The Legislative Policy Committee update, is there any update?
Nothing substantial, just a reminder that our legislative dinner will be the first Monday in December. We're looking forward to having a robust conversation with all of you.
Thank you. Financial report, September 2019 update, case of Loveland coming forward.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is the third quarter update, and I have a missing button to move the screen.
Well, Lisa's to move the screen.
It has now been discovered. Starting off with the third quarter update on sales and use tax. Year-to-date sales and use tax collections are at $15.4 million, which is an increase of 3.5% over 2018. Comparing years over year, 2018 was 2.6% over 2017. So a couple of consecutive years through the third quarter where we're up just around 3% when we compare those together. The geocodes report that we take a look at in the more detailed report on page 10, 11 of the 14 areas are up this year. Overall, the geographic areas within the city itself are up 9% versus 3% in the prior year. So a lot of positive things, as I'm sure you guys noticed locally as you're out and about doing shopping, that there's a lot of full businesses and restaurants. Specifically, underlying kind of the 3.5%, sales tax itself is up 2%. So that's kind of a broad, wide range specific to kind of the retail industry, food and beverage. But auto use tax is up 9%, and then food tax is up, food for home consumption specifically. Groceries, if you will, is up 10%. And then marijuana tax is up 22% year over year. Moving ahead to the general fund, revenues and expenditures. You'll see total revenues of $19.2 million and expenditures of $17.5 million. Everything in the report, each of the fund summaries really align with what we expect, one, year over year, and then two, when compared to budget. There's not many anomalies. Again, taxes in the general fund are up about 1.5%. Intergovernmental revenues are flat at down 1%, as are user charges and fees. Licenses and permits are actually down 15% versus the prior year. 2018 was a big year. They were up 40%. So we're really just kind of stabilizing with some right-of-way permits and other construction permits in that category. And then fines and forfeitures are down 16%. Prior year, they were down 17%. So seeing some lacking fines and forfeiture revenue over the consecutive years. On the expenditure side of things, again, things are in line. Total expenditures are up 2.8%. The budget was up 4%, so that's to be expected to see an increase in expenditures as we budgeted and planned for. On the Conservation Trust Fund, revenues are provided by lottery proceeds. You'll see $367,000 collected year-to-date and expenditures of $1.5 million. The projects making up the $1.5 million are $1.2 million at Northwest Open Space and about $400,000 at Kiwanis Pool. Total revenues are at $5.3 million and expenditures of $4.8 million. Expenditure detail is in the other report, not the summary slides that I'm providing you, but you have a copy of that with you. $1.6 million is part of the Civic Campus master plan work, $900,000 at Kiwanis, and then $1.2 million for Northwest Open Space. So those are kind of the major capital projects and kind of where their spending's at through September. The Water Fund, total revenues of $8.2 million and expenditures of $6.5 million. User charges and fees are down 4%. Again, we've talked about consumption through kind of a conservation and a wet year have driven those user charges and fees down. But total revenue collections, as you'll see at 70%, is consistent with what we would see through the month of September typically. Expenditure side, only thing to report, the capital outlay, $2.6 million. Large projects include a clarifier project and a terminal reservoir project that you'll see more detail on some of the back pages. The wastewater fund, $3.1 million of revenue and $3.2 million of expenditures. User charges is the major category there, accounting for $2.9 million of revenue. That's up 7% year over year. And then capital outlay, kind of the large expenditure item there, UV upgrades and some headworks and clarifier work as well that they're finalizing at the wastewater treatment plant. The smaller utility funds that we'll talk about, stormwater funds, total revenues of $318,000, expenditures of $73,000. Nothing has been spent on capital year to date in the stormwater fund, so that is salaries, benefits, dues, fees, memberships, and trainings that make up that $73,000 thus far through September. And then the last fund, sanitation fund. Revenues are up about 4% with expenditure up in total $1.3 million with expenditures also $1.3 million. That's kind of the pay as you throw for sanitation and trash. No changes on the revenue side as far as rate changes, and then expenditures are in line with the replacement of trash vehicles, and then other operations. So, quick recap of a quick presentation. Revenues in the general fund, our major operating category, as revenues are up 1.5% year over year. Again, sales and use tax up 3.5%, and then spending in all categories across all funds in alignment with what we would expect through September with our budget. Answer any questions if there are any.
Any questions for Jason? Dick?
I wanted to ask you a question. A couple weeks ago when we had the three, I don't know if there were 3 or 4 of the marijuana businesses come in and talk to us, they made a comment about how in Northglenn the revenue is decreasing and that their sales aren't going as strong as they had been in the past. But then when we just talked, well, this is September, right? Can we, and I vaguely remember when I first started in council, I had asked about taxes specifically on the marijuana, and they're all bundled in together with the shopping centers or with the place that they are, right?
Right.
So how do we report that marijuana tax being up?
So that's a great question.
Thank you.
So overall, so the reason that the tax is up 22% is because of the increase in the tax rate.
Right.
That we applied from the special tax from 2% to 4%. So overall, if you look at it as a wider group, each of the individual businesses, it's actually down 2% citywide. Sales are down. Some of the businesses have seen a bigger decrease than 2%, if you will. I think adding more competition to the market is where the playing field, if you have 5 hamburger joints and then the 6th one opens, you might see some fluctuation. But overall, being down 2%, I would say is fairly level, but there are some impacts to different businesses.
So when
throughout the city.
when you're saying that the marijuana tax is actually up, I forget how many percent you said, that's maybe not, because we have so many projects that we have pinned a lot of our financial hopes on that money.
Right.
That's probably the only reason that I focus on it, is to make sure that it's staying in line. So when you're saying that it's gone up, is that not a true statement then?
That is a true statement. So as the tax rate changes, it impacts the revenue
Right.
being generated from the sales
Right.
of that product. If you back out the increase in tax rate, I would say
It's flat
gross.
versus,
Correct.
okay. All right, and as you know, and truly it is because we have so many projects tied to that stream of revenue. I just want to keep an eye on it.
Yeah.
So I was curious to hear that, and now with the major sale of the one company, I'm curious to see what they'll do.
Yeah, and so, like I said, some of the businesses may be impacted more than others, so there may be different.
And then because I'm on that subject, and I just don't want to forget about it, because I'm old, Corey, does the fact that Green Solutions sold, does that affect us in any way as a city? Or can we table that for later on?
Well, it will.
Sorry, Jason.
It will, at some point, require that the city receive a transfer application.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Other than that, it shouldn't have any bearing on the city.
Okay. Thank you, Jason.
Anybody else? Jason?
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Jason.
Next is the consent agenda. Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Move to approve. Second.
Would you open the vote, Joanne?
The vote is open.
Please vote. Uh-oh. Yeah, I gotta find it.
I'll close that vote, and the consent agenda passes unanimously.
Okay. No items that were removed from the consent agenda, so resolutions. CR 127, Justice Center West Park Contract Amendment. City Clerk, would you read the title, please?
A resolution approving addendum number 1 to the professional services agreement between the City of Northglenn and DHM Design Corporation for design services for the Justice Center West Park project.
Sorry, City Manager Guer.
Thank you,
Oh,
Mayor
I'm sorry,
Escobar.
we need a motion to approve the resolution.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, City Manager Guer, summary of the item, please.
Thank you, Mayor Escabel. We don't have a formal staff presentation for you this evening. However, Amanda Peterson, our Director of Parks, Recreation, and Culture, is here and can answer any specific questions that you have about this item.
Okay. I'm sorry, Jenny?
Thank you. Amanda, I do have a question for you. So I remember, this may be some time ago, that we had talked about the Justice Center Park and moving forward with doing the design process, and I know you all have gone out and identified grant funding to be able to do that. We haven't identified any funding to actually construct the park, is
No,
that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
So when we awarded a contract for design in 2018, we put that out to bid for both a concept planning, master plan step, and then we used the actual construction design, or identified the actual construction design as a bid alternate. And we made the recommendation to only award the master plan step at that phase, not knowing exactly what was going to come of that public input process and what that vision was for that space. As we went through, the community input identified a desire for an active use playground with a nature theme and really amenities for multiple age groups and multiple interests. At that stage, before we moved forward with the actual design, we looked at long-term budget and were not able to identify budget for construction at that time. And council provided direction to staff to move forward with seeking grant funds. So our goal over this last year has been to look to leverage the about $300,000 we did have identified within the Adams County Open Space discretionary funds for remaining in this project, which clearly is not enough to do construction. However, what we were able to do is seek grant funding from two different sources and really match those to one another. That allowed us to leverage $40,000 into the total $249 for the design and retain those remaining dollars. That we did not budget them, so they're just sitting in our Adams County Open Space fund reserve. But that allowed us to retain those additional dollars rather than spending them on the design, so that we can hopefully follow a similar process and leverage those dollars as we move into the construction phase. The reason that it's important to move through the design project process is a lot of those grant opportunities require our projects to be ready to move forward, which we couldn't do. I shouldn't say we can't seek additional grant funding for construction, but it makes it much more difficult to seek grant funding for construction until such time that we have a design that makes that a shovel-ready project.
Great. And based on the amount of, I guess, the time left, and perhaps it's an MOU for the fiber line, is that correct? How quickly would we be able to begin theoretically construction on a project?
I believe they have, and I'd have to go back and look at that, but I believe they have through this spring to finish up that work. So it's well in advance of when we would be we're, I would say, more than a year out from construction on a project, just based on grant timelines alone.
Okay, and we're pretty confident that once we have built out what this park could possibly look like, that it's gonna be easier to secure funding? Because I never want to turn down free money, right?
Right.
Like, you all have done a really great job of identifying opportunities to get this park planned. I just don't want to see it sitting on the shelves for 4 or 5 years and then us have to spend more money to update the plans, to be able to move forward with them. So do you have a timeline?
Right. It makes it easier. It doesn't make it easy to get grant funding, especially in an amount large enough to be able to complete a design on this project, or a construction on this project. Like I said, what it does do, though, is provide us with a design, with a construction estimate, so that we are able to seek those grant funds, and so we know what our target is, right? Right now, we have estimates based on a concept and based on per square foot costs for similar products. But as we finalize that design, we're able to get a more specific construction estimate that we're able to really work from to develop budget. It doesn't mean that you all may not make a choice to, at some point, fund a portion of or more than what we currently have identified. It doesn't mean that we won't use that, continue to move on the direction that we kind of had that $300,000-ish to work with, and we're working with the remaining $260,000 to try to leverage that into construction funds.
Got it. Thank you. Glad to hear you're feeling better, too.
Yes, I almost have a voice for you tonight.
Yes.
Any more questions for Amanda? No? All right. Thank you, Amanda.
Thank you.
All right. Joanne, would you open the vote, please?
The vote is open.
Thank you. Please vote.
I'll close that vote, and CR 127 passes unanimously.
All right. CR 128, Joanne, would you read the title, please?
A resolution approving the intergovernmental agreement between the State of Colorado, acting by and through the Colorado Department of Transportation, and the City of Northglenn regarding traffic signal maintenance.
Motion to approve.
Second.
City Manager Garb, would you give us a summary of the item, please?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Escabel. We have no formal staff presentation tonight. However, Kent Kisselman, our Public Works Director, is here. Included in your packet was a summary of the locations that are involved with this agreement and the cost breakdown. The annual amount is about $4,200 with a $21,000 5-year total, which is reflected in the IGA, and staff's recommending approval.
Penny?
I just have a brief question. I'm curious, who covers the cost of the power to these lights, and is that something that we're responsible for? I know this is for maintenance, but it seems like a good thing to
Good
ask.
question.
Good evening, Mayor Council. Yes, that is a good question. And this agreement has actually been in place since 1988, and we've been paying $93 per signal since 1988. So this year, we took a look at that, and we did look at the actual cost to run the signal as well as maintain it, and we negotiated to basically double the price of that. So this will be the first year of a new 5-year agreement to take care of those costs associated with running the signal.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions? Joanne, would you open the vote, please?
The vote is open.
Please vote.
I'll close that vote, and CR 128 passes unanimously.
Okay. CR 130, Joanne, would you read the title, please?
A resolution approving an intergovernmental agreement between the City of Thornton and the City of Northglenn for traffic signal operation and maintenance.
Second.
City Manager Garb, would you summarize the item, please?
Thank you, Mayor Escabel. This item involves approval of resolution for Thornton Northglenn signal maintenance. Included in the packet is Exhibit A, which provides a breakdown of what signals are involved. And if there's any specific questions, Kent Kisselman, our Public Works Director, is here to answer those questions.
Questions? No question? Discussion? Open the vote, please.
The vote is open.
Please vote.
I'll close that vote, and CR 130 passes unanimously.
CR 131. Ryan, would you read the title?
A resolution approving an agreement between the City of Northglenn and Easy Excavating Incorporated for the Garland Drive Waterline Replacement Project.
Motion to approve.
Second.
City Manager Guy, would you summarize the item, please?
Thank you, Mayor Escobar. I'm going to ask Kent Kisselman to summarize this item in particular because it was related to, it's in the vicinity of Kiwanis Pool, and we did some work earlier in the year as a result of a break.
Yes, good evening. Approximately 4 or 5 years ago, we did the first section of this area in front of Kiwanis Pool from about Blue Jay to Washington. And then this year, we had from Blue Jay to Carroll, this year, we had a break right out front of the pool on a service line, and we repaired that under emergency contract. And so we thought it, while we have Kiwanis down, we thought it best to put our funds to repair the last section of asbestos pipe in that area and go ahead and get that project completed. So this will complete that 350 feet, and everything will be PVC from Carroll Lane to Washington Street in that area.
Any questions for?
I have a quick question. It's not related specifically to this project, but just out of curiosity, how much asbestos concrete pipe do we still have in the city?
Well, that's a tough one.
Is there a lot?
There is a
little?
lot.
Okay.
There is a lot, and that's something that we do, and we maintain that, with our cleaning and flushings each year. So it's in pretty good condition. So I'm sure you're familiar with, like last year, Westminster had like 17 or 18 water breaks on various lines around their city. We average 2. And most of the time we can fix those in-house. A lot of our breaks are on service lines from the line itself to the water meter on the curb. So our pipes is in pretty good condition. We do want to identify those areas and eventually replace those, but the system runs very well.
Thank you.
Have we used Easy Excavating on anything else in any of our other projects?
I'm not aware of using them before. Again, this is a pretty simple dig and replace. I mean, if our staff actually replaced the first section of this, we just don't have the staff or manpower anymore to do that ourselves. So, but it's a straight shot, not much going on there. Dig it up and put it back.
Was the primary choice to choose them just basically with the lowest bid, or?
Yeah, checking their references and comparative projects, they seemed capable and responsive, and so yes, the low bid was selected in this instance.
Any more discussion? Brian, would you open the vote, please?
The vote is open.
Please vote.
I'll close that vote, and CR 131 passes unanimously.
CR 132, would you read the title, please?
A resolution approving addendum number 1 to the professional services agreement between the City of Northglenn and Sturgeon Electric Company Incorporated for traffic signal inspection, maintenance, and emergency response services.
Second.
City Manager Guy, would you summarize the item, please?
Yes, Mayor Escobar. I'm going to ask Kent Kisselman, our Public Works Director, provide some background on what this addendum involves.
Hello again. It's a traffic signal evening. So if we'll go in the Wayback Machine back to the beginning of the year, you'll recall that we wanted to take over our traffic signal maintenance. And so we've been doing that this year, training our staff and working on that. Usually this contract was well over $200,000, but we still need that emergency on-call stuff. Where it's off hours, or if it's, our guys have learned to take a signal out of flash, but there's sometimes when we go to an intersection or a school flasher, and it's beyond our capabilities right now. So we contracted originally with Sturgeon for $45,000, and we've had them kind of charge up the last, few months. We've had some difficulties with some of our signals. So we're, needing to up that amount of the contract to get us through the remainder of the year.
Any questions for Ken? Discussion? Can we go to vote, please?
The vote is open.
Please vote.
Thanks, Janet.
We'll close that vote, and CR 132 passes unanimously.
Discussion items. First on the agenda is the Northglenn Civic Center Master Plan Phase 1 Implementation Update. Amanda's coming forward.
Good evening again, Mayor and Council. Our last official update to you was on September 23rd, which feels like a really long time ago because so much has happened since then. But we've been before you a lot with this project. We awarded the FGMP contract addendum to FCI in October on the 14th. They were here by 8 a.m., possibly before 8 a.m., the very next day, already beginning work. So they were definitely ready and have done a great job for us so far. It's only been about a month, but they have certainly made significant progress, as you all can see, even just driving by on that site. We held the ceremonial groundbreaking a couple of weeks later on October 28th. We had like this little tiny window of, I can't call it warm, it was not warm, but it was the warmest weather we had over like a 3-day period. So we were really excited to see, we had over 150 people turn out for that event. I know all of you were there, so thank you all for your support. But I think just the excitement from the community really shows when you have 150 people show up in really, really cold weather. But I appreciate everybody's excitement for the project and being willing to be there and support that moving forward. We wrapped up design workshops last week, which is really exciting for me because we have spent hour after hour after hour looking at the teeny tiniest of details over the last couple of months. This final phase of development really takes it from looking at the big picture and where do rooms go and how are things adjacent to each other to details like exactly where on each and every door is what type of door handle and what type of door hardware, and where is every single outlet, and what type of outlet is there, and what type of data is there. So I'm excited to see this phase of design come to an end, one, from looking at all of that detail, but two, just because it means that we're one step closer to moving forward with the construction of the building. The next major milestone for design is we should receive the design development package from the architect on December 12th. From there, we'll go through a similar process that we did with each of the previous design steps. We'll do an in-depth staff review, provide our comments back to the design team. They'll make any adjustments, and then we'll bring a summary of that package forward to you at a study session for review. And then the following meeting, we will bring along with that this time, the FGMP for the site and the design review should be able to come forward to you simultaneously, which I think will be helpful. And then the following meeting, if all goes well, we should be able to award that building FGMP to FCI so that they can just continue to make progress. Because we awarded the site FGMP to include the foundation, there's not a specific timeline. Like if we don't do that on February 1st, we're going to be behind schedule. There's some overlap in those processes as we move forward. We do anticipate bringing that forward to you probably in early February. We'd like to hit late January, but kind of depending on the timing of meetings. But we'll propose a schedule here once we have that package in hand and start to receive feedback from the design team. We did have one exciting budget change. I think everybody is aware, but we received $1.5 million from Adams County Open Space for the outdoor recreation amenities. We will formally accept or be presented with those grant funds tomorrow morning at 9:30 a.m. at the Adams County Government Building at the County Commissioner's public hearing. So it's exciting to see the budget go up because someone else gave us money. Yeah. So that is good news. The next contract we'll bring forward to you is one of the FF&E contracts. It will be for the the weight room equipment. That's one we've taken a little more time on. We've been going back and forth with them, trying to identify exactly which pieces of equipment will fit into that space, so that we can tighten up that contract a bit before we bring it forward. But it should be here before the end of the year, so that we can continue to make progress on that piece. As I mentioned before, I think both of the design and the construction process remain on schedule. We have, it's still really early, but like I said, the design, or the contractor has really been on top of things. We've been really pleased with them so far. They can continue to keep us updated when there are any challenges or anything they reach in the field that they need our help on. One of those, there will be a temporary power shutdown this Saturday as they connect the temporary power. There will be a generator on site, so we should have minimal impacts to essentially communications coming out of this building. It's happening on Saturday when the building is closed to the for general operating. But we shouldn't see any impacts from that as long as that emergency generator stays where it's supposed to. They'll do a test run on that on Friday afternoon or evening prior to the shutdown.
Will that just be power to this building that will be shut down? Not to the rec?
Correct, just to this building. And I just want to say thank you to council, to staff, and to the community for your patience so far. You know, as we kind of grow accustomed to major construction happening on this site and impacts to parking or water. I know we had a day a couple of weeks ago, and the clerk's office was doing passports, and there was a water shutdown on that Saturday. And hopefully we will minimize all of those disruptions as much as we can. But there are bound to be some throughout the next 18 months. So I just want to say thank you to everyone for your continued patience as you park in a different place or try to figure out exactly what's going on here on the site. Our next formal update is scheduled for December 16th. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Questions?
Exciting.
It is. All right, thank you.
City Council Ward 1 vacancy process. Corey?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. This matter had originally been scheduled for next Monday, and as Joanna and I looked at the schedule, we decided it would probably be helpful to move it up to today because of the holidays. The council's on a very limited time frame to fill the vacancy. So the dates that matter are that on December 9th, when Mayor Pro Tem Leidy is sworn in as the city's new mayor, that creates a vacancy in Ward 1. The city has 30 days to fill that vacancy, which means by Wednesday, January 8th. In terms of meetings, that would likely be, there is a study session scheduled for Monday, January 6th. That could certainly be a special meeting to make an appointment, but that is the regularly scheduled meeting of the council where the appointment could be made. The code requires 14 days notice, and basically for applications to be received during that 14 days. The reason we're presenting this to you tonight is to get a head start, frankly, on the notice. If it is acceptable to council, the notice could be published in what is considered to be the November 28th publication of the Sentinel. That is Thanksgiving Day. It's actually distributed on November 27th, but is considered the publication on the 28th, which would mean that applications could be submitted from the date of publication through December 12th. Thus, you would have effectively from December 16th through the date of appointment to utilize whatever process you decide to utilize to fill that vacancy. And we realize that smack in the middle of holiday season, but our charter and our code don't give us any flexibility in terms of that 30 days for filling the vacancy. If council decides not to fill it through appointment, you can certainly schedule a special election. You would have to do that at the January 13th meeting. which is the first meeting after the 30 days for the appointment would expire. So we are assuming, but it is probably not an appropriate assumption to make, but we are assuming the council would want to fill the vacancy by appointment as opposed to calling a special election. If that is the case, then we'd certainly like your Mayor Pro Tem Leidy. So the date the applications would close.
There's going to be some flexibility there because we're not sure if our old ballot counter could be utilized. However, the cost of servicing that machine might be offset by renting equipment from the county if possible. So there are a couple items that I'm unsure about, but a best estimate would be less than $20,000.
All sorts of questions. And then would that be an election for the 2-year term?
Yes. It is an election to complete the term so that the terms remain staggered. So it would be until the next regular election in 2021.
Jenny?
With a special election, would that be an all-male election?
No, females could
Mail
Yes.
ballots.
Yes, mail ballot.
MAIL.
Mail.
Yes?
Yes, okay.
Any other questions for Corey or Joanna?
So I have a quick question, just to clarify the timeline. So the vacancy occurs on the 9th. If we post vacancy, we're hoping it would end on the 12th?
That's
Okay.
when the applications would
That's
close.
when the applications would be due. And then we could probably start interviews possibly on the week of the 16th?
Absolutely.
Okay, because I'm just looking at the calendar and Christmas is right there
Right.
and then New Year's and I'm not really sure how many of us are going to be around to actually hear those interviews. One question, I like the idea of doing interviews possibly on the 16th if that is possible. And then one question I did have, is there going to be an opportunity for us to review the application again? Because we did have one right for the Ward 4 vacancy. And I think that there were some learnings that we had from there that, you know, maybe we want to ask a couple different things and approach it just a little differently. I know I had some learnings about doing those interviews with those folks, so.
We would certainly contemplate getting all of the applications to you as soon as the application's closed, absolutely. Now, whether or not you want to
Change the content, change the questions.
change the questions, whether you want to review the applications as a group. I mean, again, the process is up to you. The only process that is dictated by the charter is the 14-day period, and that for applications to be received after notice, and that it has to be done, the vacancy has to be filled within 30 days.
So I think my assumption was, do we want to do it the same way we did it last time, where we just interviewed everybody? Or do we want to approach it differently?
So this is my ward, and here's my concern. If nobody applies. I mean, because Ashley ran unopposed.
Then you would set a special election.
You get the OG back.
I just want to let you guys know that I
The
am
OG
not
goes
for
back.
handling this like we did last time. I felt that it was not handled correctly. Nor, I have a lot of opinions that I would share in a private section rather than on the dais, but I am not for appointing somebody to Ward 1. And I feel that if the cost is less than $20,000, then maybe we should start seriously considering holding a special election. The way that Ward 4 was handled, I don't feel that it was handled appropriately, and I think that the residents there in this last election made it very obvious that they had some real concerns with the way that we handled that. And I continued to hear that through people who were running for office in Ward 4 and residents of Ward 4. I don't want to duplicate that same problem. I don't want to have somebody coming up to us and saying, why did we not get a chance to elect our council person? I understand that we may have problems finding somebody out of Ward 1, but I know that I've already been contacted by 2 people. I just don't what we did in Ward 4 to replace Antonio leaves a really bad taste in me, taste on me, and it did on the residents too, and I think that we have to really think about that, if that's the way to do it for a 2-year term.
Becky, can you talk more about what you think wasn't handled well? Because I think unless we are talking about it,
Yeah.
I don't know that we're able to improve it. So maybe you could elaborate a little bit more?
I really think that as I look back at how that whole process was handled, I don't think that and I know that I had my opportunity to vote, but we basically brought in a filler just to fill the seat, and we knew that's what we needed to do. But what your people that ran for office in Ward 4, the ones that came back and ran for office, that's exactly what they felt that we did, that we brought in a filler to fill the hole, you know? I want to make sure that it's somebody that really wants the role and really, really wants it and will really work for the city. And I don't believe that, I don't know Lauren well. I know that she didn't have time to really like hit the ground running. But I just don't think that we did the residents of Ward 4 a big favor. I understand the cost constraints. And I feel that's why Antonio had 5 people running against him this time, is because we did this whole great big thing and we brought in people that were qualified, and somehow the person with the least amount of qualifications ended up on our board. And I heard that continually through this last couple months. And my answer to that, so that everybody knows that we're on the same page, was that this was a very limited role, very limited seats, and we would look at it again when the next opportunity arose. I think that Lucas, who had ran for Ward 4, he was very vocal, and he made some good points that he wasn't given an opportunity, you know, but granted, Lauren wasn't here for that long. We're talking 2 years now. 2 years that Ward serves the opportunity to readdress what happened in their election, right? And I think it's honestly how I feel.
So I just want to respond to a couple of things briefly. I appreciate your perspective and appreciate that you're willing to share it. I do feel like it's extremely inappropriate to speak about one of your colleagues in that way, especially because she's not here this evening. And
you asked for it in public.
No. I know, but I'm just saying, I think that this conversation could have been very different if she was here. And I can't speak for her, but I know that coming into a role like this is really overwhelming, especially when you're the only one who is coming in and in for a potential short amount of time. I do know that when she applied, that she did say that she was considering running, and through this process of serving has learned that she didn't want to. And so I think to call her a filler is really inappropriate and disrespectful. And I sincerely hope that you think about that, because the amount of service that it takes to fill one of these seats is not small.
Right.
And I hear you in that we want to make sure that whomever fills that Ward 1 spot in the future is truly dedicated. But I think that that's a really hard thing to assess in an interview. But I just, I just feel like, sorry, I'm still talking.
Oh, yeah. I understand.
I really wanted to push back on that, that I don't want this to be our culture, where we
Right.
talk badly about other people that we're serving. I don't think it sets a good tone.
I will say, in my defense, that is residents' word for the situation. And I think that's what we did. I apologize that I brought it up when she's not here, but you wanted me to bring it out, so I did. I felt that there was more to it, but again, those are my own personal opinions. I will not, I know that there are other people voting, but I won't vote for an interview process this time, just so you know.
I was leaning toward an election as well this time, but for different reasons. I also want to kind of push back a little bit on saying that Lawrence was the least qualified. If we look at our charter, it doesn't take much to be qualified.
It doesn't.
So, and I agree with Jenny that probably not going to be making judgment statements like that when she's not here. It's hurtful.
Yeah,
It's
I'll do it
icky.
next week when she's here, and I'll explain to her why I said it, if you like.
Well, and I don't know that that's necessary. I
Okay.
think that might just stir up and hurt her feelings. Because she did volunteer, she did apply, she has been serving, and she attends events, and she's part of Board 4. She represented them well while she was here. But at the time, it was a filler position. I mean, the election was coming, it was an open seat, it was a, I don't know, 12, 15-week position. So it really was a filler. I mean, that's just a fact. But she came in and I think filled it quite well. She learned it fast. She represented her ward well. But I think the difference between the situation we were in the summer and a 2-year term, I do think it's worthy of an election. And I know, however, I heard from a lot of residents that said, don't waste our money that way. And so that's a concern I have, as much as I feel like it deserves an election. I had quite a few people say that's a waste of money. And my only concern is we've had a couple elections in recent history where one person from Ward 1 has stepped up. And if you've heard from people, I think that's great. I love the interest. I've talked to Ward 1 people and I'm not hearing an interest. So I think we have to balance it. And I don't know what's best.
If you decide to publish, you are under no obligation to appoint. So you could theoretically put the ad in the paper and then make a decision ultimately not to appoint and to have the special election. The way the charter reads, if you don't make the appointment within the 30 days, then the resolution calling the special election would be at the next regular meeting, which would be January 13th. So we could certainly put something in the notice that says, words to the effect of that there's a vacancy, the council hasn't decided yet whether or not it will be by appointment or by election, but are taking interest in applications through the December 12th date. So we could
Can I
kind
ask
of
a question?
cut it down the middle. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, sorry. What is the timeline for a special election? Like, is that going to take months?
It has to be within 75 days of January 13th.
If we make the decision sooner, can we move those 75 days back?
The way the charter reads, it actually says at the next regular meeting after the 30 days has expired. So it contemplates the 30 days expiring.
So we can't make the call before the 30 days.
No, that's a different.
Mayor?
It is the charter, and so that's the concern, is that based on the language of the charter, I'm concerned about setting the special election before the 30 days elapses.
I did not catch that. I'm sorry.
Okay,
I
so
was distracted.
that's okay. The charter says if no appointment is made in the time required, meaning the 30 days, city council shall at the next regular meeting call a special election. The charter's our constitution, so we
Right.
can't deviate from that. So that's why I'm concerned about setting the special election any sooner than the January 13th date, because that's inconsistent with that language in the charter.
Okay.
Well, I think, I definitely understand yours and Becky's points about doing an election. I think that it's really tough because Ashley ran unopposed. So that means it's really likely that we're going to have one person who runs opposed. One person apply. So, I mean, at least I think that we should start the application process, see who applies. Maybe this is more of an attractive offer for somebody who really wants to get involved with their city, but yet doesn't want to spend the resources or doesn't think they have the resources to really run a full-fledged campaign And plus, I mean, it's like a 75-day campaign, so it's like, you know, that's super quick. So, I mean, I say we move forward, we post, that we get the applications, and then if no one applies, then of course we need to go to an election. If one person applies.
OG comes back.
There you go. I mean, so
Yeah.
there you go, Jenny, or Jordan, go ahead and fly. So I think that we should go that way. Again, I think this application process could hopefully bring out some quality Ward 1 folks who are really interested in serving the city, but yet maybe haven't really been attracted to the idea of running full-fledged campaigns.
So what are some things that you recommend changing? Because it was a huge red flag for me. Becky said she was the least qualified.
Yeah.
Based on what?
Yeah.
Like,
it was
did
hurtful.
we set this criteria that we wouldn't set for people that actually campaigned?
Mm-hmm.
Like, that didn't feel good. So I don't like that.
No, and personally for me, one thing that I would like to change, or at least add to the application questions, would be, you know, questions relevant to some of the work that's currently going on in the city. So like, one of the questions that I thought about is, you know, I don't remember if this is on the application actually, but like, what do you think the city should do about homelessness, or like, you know, things like that? Because I feel like those opinions could be really helpful, you know, not only to have someone bring great new ideas to council, a different perspective, is probably what I'm really looking at, is how can we get somebody who's diverse and different to council, because we need different voices up here to help, you know, strengthen the conversation. So that would be my.
So I also cannot speak for Becky in terms of what she meant by unqualified, because I tend to think that anybody who's willing to volunteer their time and willing to do the work of getting to know a community and show up for a community is qualified. I certainly don't want a council full of attorneys. Sorry, Corey, that's not a dig at you. Right, like, I don't want a council full of attorneys. I don't want a council full of folks that come from corporate America or just from the nonprofit sector. Like, what makes us strong and what makes our community strong is a diversity of voices and backgrounds and experiences. And so I don't believe that there are qualifications other than living in Northglenn and loving this city. And if somebody is able to demonstrate that to us and we believe that we can work with them, I think that goes a long way in helping them make the case. I hear everybody's perspective around the election, possibly, as well as going through an appointment process. And I'll be totally frank in that I support going through an appointment process, because I think, 2 years, while the amount of time is very short, it's also long enough that I think it's important for us all to make sure that this new person who's going to be coming onto our council is somebody that we can all work with and that we're going to jive well, because our culture is really important. And if we can build one where we're all a part of a team, I think that that's important for the future of our city. Additionally, I think elections are expensive. I think that folks who don't know that there's an election is happening, they're not going to be looking for a ballot in the mail, and they're not potentially going to cast that ballot in something that's really important, right? And so I think that's a concern of mine. The other concern is frankly that, yes, this is a tough decision, but the residents of Northglenn have selected us to make the tough decisions, right? And I think every time we have a tough decision, we can't kick it back to the voters, and because our ballots would be insane. So I think that we should move forward with an application process. We should do the best that we can to get a really robust pool of diverse candidates with diverse experiences and qualifications, and see who could fit the best for us.
Ward 1 over there. What are your thoughts on our people?
I think really going back to Councilmember Brown's comments,
That's not,
No,
I know, but she's not here.
But I'm just gonna go based off
By
of
the
those.
same principle.
Of having someone come in and be noted as a filler is completely inaccurate. And I think for 2 years, this is a member who's gonna be sitting on a council, getting more involved, being a part of the information sessions for them to be a full-blown council member, I think is important that, one, I'd say go back to an application portion and see what interests you have gauged before you take it to the taxpayer cost, because those elections are very expensive. And say you only have one member run and you put out all of that money to be able to do so, I don't see it to be worth it. But I enjoyed the interview portion of the members. I enjoyed the application portion. And I think if there's questions in particular you want to ask about their involvement with the city prior, that's to be noted. But I will also say that individuals who are running or have run, not everyone comes to the council meetings before they are elected or are currently going between now and their swearing in date. So I think there's that element of being mindfulness of what the requirements are for this individual to come in for 2 years versus what we require them to come in for 4. I just wanted to be mindful in that capacity, but I would go with the application portion and the interviews. This is a individual that you're gonna be working with for 2 years, and to give them the adequate resources to be able to be part of your council from the beginning, I think is important. I feel bad for Lauren that she didn't have such an onboarding. I mean, not that everyone, I feel, had as big onboarding as we're planning to do, but for Lauren, that was just a really fast jump on council with very little onboarding or involvement that what we had prior. There's that, but I would go application. I'd post it and go application. I just fear that doing such a fast campaign over the holiday season in the cold, when you're knocking doors, is very different than doing it when we did it.
All right, well, I support the application, going out and getting the information out to the residents of Ward 1, see what we get. We may get 15 candidates, and then we can choose 15, and may get 1 or 2, and if they're both great, maybe we want to say, okay, you got 2 great candidates, let's go to an election. Let the voters decide. I mean, we don't know. We can all make a case for what we think would happen. We don't know what's going to happen.
We can certainly put some wiggle room in the application notice, and I think Joanna has the list of all of the things we did last time in terms of publicizing it. And Joanna, I don't know if you want to go through.
Sure, maybe as a quick reminder of
Yeah,
how the
that'd be
Ward
great,
4
actually.
vacancy was handled. So we advertised that vacancy in by several different methods. It had its own dedicated webpage on the city's website. The official legal notice was published in the Denver Post. That was due to the timing in that case. We had an advertisement published in El Comercio de Colorado. We mailed postcards to every household in Ward 4. That would be something that we would again do. I think that gives a very specific communication that, quite frankly, people don't get with a regular election or a special election for candidates. So that postcard would be sent to every household to inform them of the vacancy. Postcards were also available at the front desk in City Hall and in the city clerk's office for residents who may come in to do other business. Flyers were posted on the bulletin boards in City Hall. The communications division at that time did a huge social media outreach. They advertised on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Nextdoor. And then, of course, the applications were available on the website and also in the city clerk's office. I was made aware that the December issue of the Connection goes to print this Thursday. So we would definitely include something in that issue if council agrees with moving forward with the application process tonight.
Okay.
And then we'll put this agenda item back on the agenda next Monday for scheduling, just so that we can get it on your calendars and you can maybe spend the next week looking at your calendars over the holiday season for that week of December 16th. If you decide to do any sort of interview process, it'll give you time to sort of figure out what those couple weeks look like before the January 6th meeting date, where if you decide to make an appointment, that would be the night.
May I ask a question? I just want to make sure and get the messaging and the connection correct. So we're definitely taking applications, but it's still open-ended on whether there may be a special election after that. The third question is, do you want me to ask residents to reach out and say whether they have a feeling about whether it's an appointment or whether it's an election? Or do you only want me to talk about, we're taking applications, and after, a certain date, it's still an open discussion on whether there will be an election after that? Do you want me to ask people to also let you know what they prefer, or no?
I have a question about that second part, because I don't know, I don't know that I feel comfortable asking someone to do the application and do the interview, and then say, now you have to run for office.
And that's why I'm asking, because the connections do this Thursday, and I want to make sure I'm messaging correctly, which is, we know we're going to take applications. We don't know whether we're going to have a special election or not, but we want to take applications because of the time constraint. So we want to let people know, because if it were to happen that you get 10 applications and then you decided to do a special election, this is the only connection you're going to get to let people know, what's happening. So that's why I wanted to make sure and clarify the messaging I put in the connection.
I'm afraid that scares people away, to be honest. I think, and we have a smaller pool to start. So I feel like if we say that it could possibly be both, we're going to scare everybody away and it's going to be nothing. So I would prefer that we do application only.
All right, so the deadline's Thursday. All I'm saying is there will be a vacancy in Ward 1. At this point, the council is taking applications, period, end of story.
And conducting.
It.
If we're doing that, can we set a deadline by which the applications are due so that that's also included?
It is that December 12th,
For
yes.
sure, okay.
December
I just
12th.
want to make sure that there's like a hard and fast deadline that folks know about in the connection, so they're not wondering and having to go do research and.
Well, and it will be interesting because the deadline's early because of Thanksgiving. It doesn't hit people's mailboxes till any time between the 1st and the 5th. So really, they don't get a lot of time. And we can advertise other ways, social media, for example, the postcards, for example, and do that on a shorter timeline. But for the connection specifically, content's due this Thursday because of the holiday, doesn't hit mailboxes till after December 1st.
To be honest with you, I think the postcard's probably the most effective way of making sure you reach every single household.
As far as
in
Ward 1,
So
correct.
I think that would be kind of like our gold standard. The connection's a great icing on the cake. And yeah, that timing is tough.
not good.
But I think now that, if we have a postcard going out to every single household, I mean, the communication's there.
This may be a question for Corey. Are we allowed to run targeted digital ads in Ward 1?
Yeah.
Like, are there any issues with that? since we're
In
not
terms of
promoting
trying
within
to get,
the
applicants.
oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, and I could do paid social media ads to that area, but that's not on the same timeline. Like, I could talk to you about it later, and we're gonna be okay. But the connection, it's Thursday, so I just wanna make sure I know. So all we're saying is, we're taking applications and gonna conduct interviews, and that's all we're saying about it, correct?
And so what I'm hearing is then there's no, the decision tonight is to do an appointment, not any sort of wiggle room in the notice. Because I certainly wouldn't recommend going through the application process, the interview process, and then deciding to put it to an election. If you were inclined at all to, based on the number of applicants, then decide to set it for an election, that's one thing. But we would want to put that in the notice, and I agree that it may impact how many candidates you get. So we need to know what to put in the notice.
No election.
No election?
Question though, when are we, if we're communicating about the application, when are we refining the application?
Now, that's out of my scope, so I'm gonna sit back down, okay?
I can send the application out to city council tonight. We would just need to have a firm deadline of when we would need your feedback back to me so that we could either make changes or you could have another discussion about the content of the application.
And I would suggest that that application needs to be finalized again by Thanksgiving Day, or the 27th is the date that the Sentinel is going to be out. And so that's the date someone will see it.
Jenny?
Could we also have a copy of the interview questions for in-person sent around again? I know there were definitely some of those that I want to tweak and refine and potentially use some of them from our Ward 4 candidate forum, because I felt like some of them just cut a little bit deeper. So if we can do that, I would appreciate it. And then the other piece that I think that we should all get really clear on is one, like, how many we're identifying as our favorites, and then what that process looks like to select someone. Like, I, again, cannot speak for Becky, but like, I too struggled with that process after we had gone through the interviews.
Yeah.
So if we can all like work to refine that and have a clear pathway to determining who we're gonna appoint, I think that could be really helpful.
I have
Awesome. All right.
Yeah,
that was
Mayor Leidy will do it.
really
That's
difficult.
fine.
I was like, I had,
Yeah.
And two things. So we'll have this on the agenda next Monday. If Joanna gets the information out to you, I would encourage you to come prepared for this part of the discussion as well. In other words, the application, to the extent you have comments, and then the interview questions so that we're ready to go. And the other thing is you're thinking about a process for the appointment. The only constraint is there is case law in Colorado that says you can't do it by secret ballot.
Yeah.
The city used to do it that way. That's the one constraint you can't do because a couple years ago, the law changed.
Got it.
All right, thank you, Corey.
Okay.
So that moves us to communications. Why don't we start with you, Jenny?
Knowing that Julie has a longer update than usual, I'm gonna say nothing this evening. Thank you.
All right, so I do have a couple updates I'd like to share with the group, and a lot of them are around transportation. So first off, so I'm not sure if you guys heard, but RTD has a special, it's called the Promotional Fare Pilot Program for the N-Line that's on their agenda for consideration for tomorrow night for the RTD board. So the whole premise of this is a lot of this comes down to the fare discussion that we talked about in the N-Line. So just to remind everybody, so currently as it sits, when the N-Line opens, the last two stops, so the 112th station, located here in Northglenn, and then the 124th station, are in the regional fare zone for RTD, which means you have to pay more to board the train on the commuter rails. I know, oh my God, I can't say that. To board the rail at those two stations. So there's a couple reasons why I feel like our council, as well as Thornton City Council, are upset about this. One, because we are experiencing a 2-year delay already as it is on the N-Line. Then you're going to charge our residents more to actually use the N-Line. And another consequence of that, for those who really want to use it and want the cheaper fare, it's actually just going to push more traffic south to those more southern stations, which kind of defeats the whole purpose of why we have commuter rail in the first place. So I think the fares disincentivize ridership, and I mean, we want to have a successful transit line here. And so one thing that we've been working on, we as in myself, Jessica Sangren at Thornton City Council, Kyle Mollica, our state representative, and then Vince Busick, our RTD director. We've been applying a lot of pressure on RTD because of this, specifically for the fares. Now, we do have a laundry list of grievances with RTD, but we wanted to pick on this one particularly because, you know, I feel like the N-Line success is really important for Northglenn. And so after applying lots of pressure on RTD, they came up with this promotional fare pilot program, which again is going to be on their agenda for the RTD board to consider tonight. I do plan on going down there. I would like to ask for council support, that, you know, the city support and really want to, you know, see this pass. What it is a 6-month pilot program where it would turn the fares at those last two stops into the local fares. So the reason why it's only 6 months is because there's a lot of federal kind of red tape about how long you could do, kind of like a commercial payer program. And so afterwards, they're gonna look at the data, look at ridership, consider other things, and see if they could make those fares stick. So it's a small win, a very small win, if it passes tomorrow night, but at least it's a win in an area where RTD wins come very few. So we're very excited about this. And so I would like to get just council support to speak on your guys' behalf, the city's behalf, to really support the city tomorrow at RTD. Hopefully I got.
Yes,
Okay,
thanks
well,
for your tremendous
I would assume so,
leadership.
but just needed to clarify that. And then my final transportation update is, again, I found a really good ally in Jessica Sangren at Thornton City Council. So last week, we attended a meeting with CDOT. We met with their executive director, Shoshana Liu, and then the CDOT Region 1 Transportation Director, Paul. Thank you so much for Brooke, our Director of Planning and Development, for coming with me to the meeting here tonight. But I really appreciate having him there, as well as staff from Thornton, because when they start talking transit and planning and all of those words are like flying around, I got really lost quickly, and they had some great questions, great clarifying questions. And a majority of the meeting was really just focusing on the issue that we're experiencing between 84th and 104th, that safety issue. So I'm sure a lot of people have personally either been stuck in traffic heading I-25 southbound because there was an accident, again, between 84th and 104th. Yeah. What happened is when CDOT added that toll lane, it made that area really narrow. And so as people come flying down from Thornton Parkway, they tend to hit, a slowdown. Of course, they don't slow down, and then we end up seeing lots of accidents. The accident rate has increased dramatically since that toll lane has been put in place. So our question was, why wasn't this area put on CDOT's next plan for projects? And so we wanted to ask, just what was it that made this project not, did not make their list? Why was there no funding to put this issue? Because it's just, for me, I think it's a pretty serious safety concern. I see accidents weekly, multiple times a week, specifically in that section. And so we had a great conversation with them. We learned a lot of things about how to make this issue, I guess, more prominent. We have several follow-up meetings talking about how we could continue to find funding to improve this area. One of it is, unfortunately, a very large ask from RTD. We need $30 million to put in center loading bus stations. So one identified task is we don't want those buses weaving down I-25 as they have to hit the parking rides on the side and then make it to the toll lane in the middle. And so we're working on trying to figure out how to find the funding we need and really just advocate for this project, because not only does it impact Thornton and Northglenn, but it impacts the cities to the north, because as I-25 backs up because of an accident, unfortunately that traffic goes all the way north to 6. And so, again, we're working on advocating for that project as well. That's all my transportation.
Hold on. Oh, I don't even know. Oh, in the spirit of transparency, I'm going to the National League of Cities City Summit tomorrow. It happens to be in Texas, where my parents just moved. So we're extending it to a Thanksgiving visit, so I will be gone on Monday.
I don't have any relatives in Texas.
Or do I?
I didn't want to, but now I do.
Very little for me. I truly regret not being present for the groundbreaking. It was something I really wanted to be a part of. But stuff happens beyond my control. Probably all. Tori?
Nothing tonight, Mayor, besides congratulations to our mayor-elect and new member-elects. Very exciting time for North. And to our current mayor, thank you for getting on the floor with the cute little girl to receive her proclamation.
Put that stamp.
It's the beautiful kissing babies moment of your mayorship, and I really enjoyed watching.
You still need to put that stamp on there.
I enjoyed it.
Joanne?
I have nothing tonight, Mayor.
Mayor, Heather?
Just two quick things. Diana asked me to remind you that at 7:45 a.m. tomorrow, please be prompt in front of the Recreation Center. We are going to be taking a photo, all of staff who attends, along with elected officials. We've invited two council members that are Catherine and Ashley, who were elected, to participate with us. So 7:45 a.m. Rec Center. It's a lot of corralling folks together, so please be prompt, and that will go on our holiday card that we will be sending out here within the next couple weeks. And then earlier, I could not find the date of when I am meeting with Amanda and Felicia from the powwow, and that meeting will be on December 10th, so I just wanted to let you know that. Thank you.
Tori?
I think I've said enough tonight.
Okay, last item is public to be heard, invited to be heard. Anybody in the audience who would like to address the council? All right, let's move on. Now I need a motion to go into executive session.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay. Would you open the vote, please?
The vote is open.
Please vote.
We'll close that vote, and the motion to adjourn to executive session passes unanimously.
We'll give 5 minutes at least to, got to get all this equipment.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Or the one.
Did they give you an order?